The words of Judy Brown. Happiness is a choice. And we're happy you're spending some time with us, Chip and Zay, right here on Texas Sports Unfiltered on a, take two Tuesday. We'll go with that for the moment.
We go with that. That's cool.
We'll go with that. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, please feel free to comment. It's your show. We are merely the conduit. And if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing the Texas Sports Unfiltered YouTube channel, helps us grow like Popeye eating spinach. And please take note of and give your love and money to these incredible sponsors around our faces. Audiovisual Consultations, Sleep Cycle Center, Covert Bee Cave, Altstadt Brewery, Leaf Landscape and Supply, Cover 3, OLIPOP, McCall Custom Homes, Woods Comfort Systems, 34 Wine and Spirits, and Centex Tickets, baby. We appreciate each and every one of those. And if you're listening to us on the app, welcome. Hopefully I have a couple new listeners, Philip and Scott, who I recruited today. Thanks, guys, if you're tuning in. Feel free to play along on the COTA Circuit of the Americas text line at 512-222-9328. Zay, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, man. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Feeling good, feeling great. Chip, how are you?
Oh, man. I am. So.
Yo, by the way, you really showing your age with that Popeye, my guy. Like,
yeah.
Damn, Popeye dropped today. I mean, I appreciate it. I love the classics, but you're showing your age there a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not good.
It was good. It was good. I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying.
For our 50 and older demographic, for those under 50, Popeye was never mind.
What do you mean, never mind? Let's talk about Popeye a little bit. Popeye was cool.
Popeye the Sailor Man, he was a cartoon character who, when he ate spinach, turned into a monster.
Here's the game. That was like steroid spinach.
Steroid spinach for sure.
Yeah, before we even knew about steroids or anything. Popeye, it wasn't just spinach in there.
Yeah, there was like some HGH in there, I think.
There was something going on. Popeye was getting that spinach in a dark alley.
Yeah. For sure.
But hey.
But what was your favorite cartoon growing up, Zay?
Gosh, I was ignorant as a kid, so Ren and Stimpy was hilarious to me.
Oh,
I knew something was very inappropriate about Ren and Stimpy, and I got a dark mind, so I gravitated towards that. That was Ren and Stimpy always had me dying laughing as a child.
What about SpongeBob and South Park?
See, I don't know if South Park could be considered a cartoon.
Adult cartoon?
Yeah, it's like an adult cartoon, but it's probably not something you would allow your 5-year-old to watch on a Saturday morning.
Okay. This is a good point about Popeye from Eddie Williams. Don't know what Popeye and Brutus saw in olive stick oil. So olive oil was this pin-thin gal on the Popeye cartoon who Popeye was always trying to woo her. Brutus was always trying to like forcibly take her.
Yeah, he was a little
handsy.
Yeah, he was a little, inappropriate. say the least.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up, Zay. Yeah, there's olive oil. She didn't have much going on.
See, the steroid spinach, it wasn't worth this.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Because Popeye couldn't have lived long with how he was living. And like to put all of that steroid spinach, and even if we're talking about regular spinach, it's still not good enough for this woman. I don't know. It was a weird time back in the day.
Now, if you put Megan Good up there.
What?
Well, then the steroid spinach would be worth it.
It would be worth it. I agree.
Or Nia Long or whichever you don't.
Man. Look at you naming these elite sisters of the 90s, early 2000s. I appreciate it. Nia Long, man. I still can't trust Ime Udoka because of Nia Long, man. That's why I'm so hesitant on this Kevin Durant situation. You know, it sounds good.
Really?
Yeah, really, damn it.
Okay, because Ime Udoka broke up with Nia Long. You don't.
Oh, no, not Brett. She broke up with him. Ime Udoka was wilding out. Ime Udoka was wilding out with the Boston Celtics employee. Celtics did a really good job of covering up as much as they could. But then.
Okay, so he was running around on her.
Yeah, come on.
And that's inexcusable.
Nia Long, bruh. I get it if you were out here with olive oil.
Right.
If Ime Udoka is running around with an olive oil looking broad, then hey, you know.
That's one thing.
That's one thing. We talking about Nia Long here.
You can't be cheating on Nia Long.
No, you seen Fresh Prince. You seen Friday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just...
I could watch reruns of Fresh Prince all day.
Oh, that's a classic show. That was Will.
Will in his hay.
Yeah, before Jada corrupted his mind and had him slapping Chris Rock and stuff and making horrible rap albums. He just dropped a rap album. Awful. Horrible. Atrocious.
Awful. Horrible.
It's so bad. The game, and I loved Will Smith too. The Chris Rock thing, that was so embarrassing. But yeah, it's hard to trust Ime Udoka with what he did. I know that's not fair. I know him off the court and him on the court. You could separate them. But sometimes it's like, man, I don't know. You might have that dark cloud just hovering over you because of your wrongdoings. Because he got a job quick. It was like the Celtics thing didn't even happen according to Houston. It was like, hey, this guy, he's an elite coach. He came from the Greg Popovich tree. Like, other than what he did with the Celtics off the court to get him freaking fired, let's bring him on. And they were a 2 seed this year. And they traded their liabilities on the team and 5 second-round picks in the 2025 pick for Kevin Durant, who's 36 years old, who every day is on Twitter arguing with someone, going at someone. Like he went after our boy Emmanuel Acho, a little Texas on Texas love there. Because Acho had something to say on his show about what he thought rings meant and what, you know, how worthy those rings are or how valid those rings are. And he had Kevin Durant comparison to that. And according to Acho, not very valid for Acho. And Kevin Durant had something to say about that. So I want to believe in Houston and believe that they can win.
We got to believe.
Championship. We got to believe, right?
Got to manifest it.
Yeah, because I like Fred VanVleet. I like Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson has so much upside, and his twin brother that plays for your Detroit Pistons.
So are you ready to put a Post-it note?
Oh, man.
It seems like you've come around overnight.
No.
No?
Well,
Okay.
let's wait till I get back from vacation.
Yeah.
Right? I'll be going to Cabo next week. Let's wait till I get back from vacation so I can have a clear mind coming back, because it's been a long year. You know what I'm saying?
A long year.
A long year. Sometimes you got to go decompress and then come back rejuvenated. You know,
The sun's burned you.
burned. They got fist fights in the locker room, according to DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh my Lord.
Multiple. Not just one fist fight. One, okay, we can get past that. We're alphas out here, come from different backgrounds. Not everybody sees eye to eye. One, we could get past it. Michael Jordan punched Steve Kerr in the face. They won 3 titles together. We could get past it. Multiple? Nah, there's something toxic going on, Chip. Multiple. I guess on season and all, but nah.
I'm gonna give you time.
Thank you.
On your vacation.
Appreciate it.
Okay, a couple interesting things we will get into today. Someone has written an interesting article about the rise and fall of Tom Herman.
Jeez.
We'll get into that. But man, I want to get into this guy, Richard Wesley. And we'll talk to Hank South. He's going to join us here in a second. But David Wesley, edge rusher.
You say David Wesley?
Richard Wesley.
Yeah, you're thinking of Baylor 2 guard.
I'm thinking of the Baylor 2 guard.
Back in the day.
They're talking about Richard Wesley being the best edge rusher to come out of California since Kayvon Thibodeau. And our West Coast recruiting guy, Brandon Simmons, here's the scouting report from Greg Biggins, who's a national scouting analyst for 24/7 Sports. Wesley was a top 5 overall prospect in the 27 class before reclassifying to the 26 class. Very talented player and the best edge prospect to come out of California since at least Kayvon Thibodeau from the class of 2019. Has actually been comped to Thibodeau in terms of frame and play style, but at the same stage in their development, Wesley looks further along from a size, strength, and toughness standpoint. Shows off natural pass rush ability, can dominate the run game as well, flashes a quick get off, uses his hands well, can bend, dip, explode. See, this is what you got to do, Zay. When you have Colin Simmons, you got to get the dudes that are like the next wave of Colin Simmons. And that's what Richard Wesley appears to be. We'll talk to Hank about it. We'll talk to Hummer. But this is what they need to be doing with these linebackers. This kid Atkinson and the other 5-star who I asked Hank about is he similar to Anthony Hill? There he is. Okay, let's bring in Hank, the MVP and managing editor of Horns 24/7, where we have been pumping out the recruiting content. It has been stellar. If you're not on Horns 24/7, following along all this Texas recruiting, including the commitment of Richard Wesley, then I don't know. We got to get you. It's going to cost you less than a cup of coffee for a month. Hank, how you doing?
I'm great. How are y'all?
Good.
Man, we're getting excited about all these commitments you've been writing about. I was just talking about Richard Wesley. And then I was telling Zay that I feel like Richard Wesley is the next Colin Simmons.
Yeah.
And so when you've got a Colin Simmons, you got to recruit the next Colin Simmons. When you've got an Anthony Hill, especially going into his junior year, you need to make sure that you're getting either Tyler Atkinson or Xavier Griffin.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to maintain that level. Richard Wesley, Greg Biggins, who obviously covers the West Coast great for 24/7 Sports and has done for a long time, he compares him to Kayvon Thibodeau. He's like the best. He said he thinks he's the best edge rusher from the West Coast since Kayvon Thibodeau, which is obviously very high praise with what he was able to do at Oregon and then now at the New York Giants. But if you look at his eval, he even says, looking at him, he's almost further along than where Kayvon Thibodeau was at this stage. And obviously, you want to get kids that still haven't reached their ceiling, but that's pretty high praise for Richie Wesley at this point in his high school career, and saying that he's reclassified from the class 2027. So like he should be going into his junior year of high school, but he reclassified. He's now going into his senior. Give me 1 sec. Sorry. Classic summer. It's always something.
Hell them kids, Hank.
1 sec.
Hell them kids, man.
Hey, and Richie Wesley is already 6'5", 250.
I like that. It's good size.
Like he reclassified from 27 to 26, and he's already 6'5", 250. Like, you know how Adrian Peterson was a full-grown man?
See, that's not the good comparison right now after him getting his ass whooped at the poker game. All
right, pick a guy who showed up. Pick a guy who showed up on campus. Nick Brooks. You know, Nick Brooks is 6'7", 260.
For sure.
That's what I'm talking about. Prepackaged, grown-ass man. Looks like he's already been in the weight program a couple of years. Hank, Father of the Year South, rejoins us. But Hank, Richie Wesley's already 6'5", 250, and he's reclassifying from 27 to 26.
Yeah. I mean, it's nuts. And I saw CB say he goes, you can call him either. I think he goes by Richie, but yeah, he's a freak. And I know Rivals is doing their like 5-star challenge up in Indy, and I saw Jason Sukamel posted a video of him and Felix Ojo going one-on-one, and he beat Felix Ojo twice in those reps. And obviously they're not wearing pads. Like, I think it kind of favors the rusher in those situations. But I mean, he has moves. He's already got kind of an arsenal of moves he has coming off the edge, quick twitch. It's like just kind of like just a terror off the edge. So I think that's how you would describe Colin Simmons coming out of high school as well. And we saw how effective he was in year one at Texas. So I think that's a huge, huge get for Texas, especially after a week where, we saw Dre Quinn go to Clemson, which, we expected, ahead of that. And then Luke Wafel, who committed to USC, he was a guy Texas liked a lot off the West Coast. And then, to be able to get these guys in the fold is huge. And I think it's a credit to, the job they've done recruiting him. Obviously, it was a big headline a couple, I guess it's June 24th, month and a half ago, he committed to Oregon. And now, he's since decommitted. Now he's committed to Texas, looks pretty locked in. Alan Clark did a really good job there for Texas in his role as well.
Yeah, Alan Clark.
It's his first big, it's like his signature commit so far. And so, everyone's like, oh, well, what does this mean for this and this? And I mean, like getting him is a huge deal. So like, if there's any sort of I don't think there's going to be fallout in terms of kids getting scared away or a kid going elsewhere. I think, they're doing a good job of recruiting these guys. So like Trenton Henderson, who's a 5-star edge rusher they hosted last weekend from Pensacola. He's a guy they still absolutely love and want to get in this class. Jamarian Carlton from Temple, another guy that they really like that Texas is going head-to-head with Baylor for. And then, Xavier Griffin, Kosi Okpala, both guys that can play linebacker, kind of that's their, off ball is their future, but maybe start out at edge a little bit rushing the passer. So there's still options, but I mean, to get him, the rest is just kind of icing on the cake at that point if you hang on to Wesley.
Yeah, Hank, we all know nobody's safe until you sign on that dotted line. What happened with Oregon and Wesley? Because I remember Dan Lanning, that famous, video of Wesley and Dan Lanning jumping in the pool, and it seemed like he was all in going to Eugene. And obviously, Alan Clark didn't give a damn because he got the flip. Like, how did that all happen?
Yeah, I think the issue with the Oregon commitment was, if I'm not mistaken, I think he visited Oregon alone. He didn't go with like his family, his parents, or anything. And kids go on visits, they get the visit high. They don't go home and kind of think about it a little bit. It was before official visit season. He made the decision and committed. So I think it was more so like, hey, got excited. Obviously, we really like Oregon. He still officially visited Oregon. But hey, let's take these official visits and make sure that that's the right decision. And then, of course, Texas was able to get that last weekend. And so again, like you said, it's not done until, it's not even done like even once you're enrolled at this point. I feel like kids can still change their minds, but obviously, that's a pretty good sign. But come signing day, with the paperwork and everything, and he's saying all the right things in June. We'll see. Obviously, I would imagine Oregon's still going to try to flip him. I would imagine USC, I don't know how much more money USC has to spend on this class right now, but it doesn't seem like they're running out anytime soon. I would imagine USC maybe still tries to talk to him. I think Arizona State was in it for him, so Texas will have to keep recruiting him. But to get that win now is definitely big.
Well, give us your take on the rest of the recruiting weekend, Hank, because it's been. I mean, we talked to you about the defensive lineman who committed last week. Alan Clark helped out a little bit over there too.
Yeah.
Tell us about this past weekend.
Yeah. So, he wasn't on campus this past weekend, but Vodney Cleveland, who visited the weekend prior, the big defensive lineman from Birmingham, he committed to Texas, and that was a really big win. He took the official to Texas June 13th through 15th, and then he had a Miami visit scheduled for this past weekend, but it was really coming down to between Texas and Florida. Florida had a lot of momentum prior to that visit to Texas. They were able to swing things with him and get him in the fold. But another, really good job by Kenny Baker. He now has Vodney Cleveland, Corey Wells, and Dylan Berryman. So he's going Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and that's a pretty good way to build out a defensive line from the high school ranks if you're trying to get SEC difference makers. But Vodney Cleveland, 6'3", 305 pounds, another quick twitch, explosive guy. I talked to his head coach at Parker. So Vodney Cleveland's team played KJ Lacey's team in the state title game this past season in 6A Alabama. Parker won, so Vodney Cleveland's team won. But I was talking to him, his coach. They have all sorts of talent. They coached Naeem Offord, the 5-star cornerback, and they've had other guys throughout the last few years, but really talented program. But he was like, you can tell this kid's a future Sunday player, just the way he goes about things. And, he was saying he's still raw too. Like he's only been playing defensive line for a couple of years. So, he's still learning how to play the position. So that's something you like to hear with a kid with those kind of measurables and athleticism that's still learning how to do it. That's a good combo to have. So Vodney Cleveland, I think, is a really, really nice pickup. Another guy that, probably going to have to keep recruiting him. He was committed to Alabama at one point, decommitted. Now he's committed to Texas. I would think Bama, or, I don't know how much Bama, but like Auburn and Florida are going to try to keep coming after him. So, but yeah, that's a big get. But as far as, this past weekend, I think, obviously Wesley's the big development there in terms of commitments that, we saw come from the weekend. But I think, it was the biggest weekend they had in terms of number of visitors. So I think in all it was 17, if my count's right. A lot of the guys they already had committed were in. So, guys like Diabell, Jermaine Bishop, Chris Stewart, Max Wright, Nick Robertson, those guys were all in to help recruit. But in terms of targets, we saw Wesley, John Turntine III, Texas, three major targets there, and then James, a couple other defensive linemen, James Johnson, Kendall Gerville from Florida, two guys Texas would love to add on that defensive front, guys that they're in contention for. And then maybe one of the more interesting late adds to the visitors list this week was Tyler Atkinson this past weekend, the 5-star linebacker from Georgia, who, if you're looking at like high school linebackers from the state of Georgia, he kind of reminds you almost kind of think of Reuben Foster in terms of kind of his play style, just kind of like that vicious, hard-hitting linebacker. And it's interesting because, there was some buzz. I wrote on Horns 24/7 in May that Johnny Nansen went out and saw him in Georgia. They had a really good conversation. They planned to visit. But after that, we didn't really hear much about, where things stood with Texas. He took a visit to Clemson, Oregon, and I think Georgia. And then everyone kind of thought he was going to go to Ohio State last weekend, but he switched it up and went to Texas. And it seems like one of those late pushes, Texas, not even late, they've been recruiting him for a long time. He's been on campus a few times, but one of these like sneaky recruitments Texas is just, quietly going about. We learned he's been working out with Derek Johnson in Austin, that group. So he's getting really familiar with Austin. Texas's Peach State roster numbers are climbing as years go on. We got Justice Terry now, Zalis Hicks, Nick Brooks, Amari Winston, other guys in the fold. So, they're really hitting that Georgia pipeline hard. So, I still hear Georgia buzz with him. A lot of people think that's where he's going to ultimately end up. But Texas is making it very interesting. And I'm sure Georgia's not comfortable to be having a recruiting battle like this with Texas when we saw what happened with Justice Terry last year. So that'll be an interesting one to see how it plays out. But yeah, I think Trenton Henderson, Richie Wesley, those were kind of the big uncommitted targets we saw visit this past weekend.
Hank, what are you noticing with La'Allen Clark? Obviously, once he touched down the 40 acres, he's hit the ground running and done a really impressive job. We know he's not even in his 30s yet, so he's very relatable to these young guys, coming out of high school. What have you seen thus far with La'Allen Clark?
Yeah, I think he just loves recruiting. And like you said, he's a younger guy. He's got a lot of energy. He's got a pretty stacked resume for how young he is, for what he's been able to do so far. But I think the biggest thing that sets him apart is he just loves recruiting. Like if you follow him on Twitter or kind of watch him go about it, like he's always doing something, some kind of like, it'll be like a Saturday night at like 10:45 or something. And he's tweeting about either like a cryptic tweet about a recruitment or like chopping wood or, when the 2027 kids could be contacted last weekend at midnight, like he was ready to go. Like he usually, recruiting staffers will send these kids DMs or, send out the graphics and whatnot. I would imagine La'Allen Clark was the one sending his messages to his guys. So I think that's what sets him apart. And the energy, I think, he's starting to become more and more of a household name and he just loves this aspect of it where a lot of coaches maybe don't love the recruiting portion as much. I think he's kind of that he's the exception there. So it's helped. I think kids really like him a lot. We saw that with Wesley, guys like Lamar Brown, he's kind of put Texas in the mix with pretty heavily. Trenton Henderson, and all the, these other edge targets too as well. So he's been a really good addition for the staff.
Yeah. The video of Richie Wesley demoralizing Tennessee 4-star offensive tackle commit Gabriel Osenda. He Osenda over the tackling dummy. It's pretty impressive, Hank. Okay, so what where are the holes? What does Texas still need to fill in this 2026 recruiting class?
Yeah, so I think obviously offensive line, you have 2 commitments. You want to have probably at least 5, I would think. I think the big 3, we're all going to see announced decisions here the next few weeks, whether it's Malachi Ali from Hawaii, John Turntine III from North Crowley, or Felix Ojo from Lake Ridge. Obviously want to hit there. That's a big need this class. So I'd probably start there. After that, I think linebacker, you want to sign a bigger class there. Xavier Griffin's out there, Braden Rouse, Tyler Atkinson. Then you kind of have lesser ranked guys, but guys Texas really likes, like Kosi Okpala, who's, kind of an edge linebacker type. Or even Calvin Thomas, who Texas has come on for a little bit harder as of late. They hosted him last weekend for a visit. It's kind of like a Texas-Nebraska race right there. So linebacker, offensive line. After that, running. I mean, what's interesting is there's not really a running back you could point to right now. After we saw KJ Edwards commit to A&M last week, not out of the blue, but I think caught everybody by surprise. Figured he would at least visit Texas last weekend and maybe have a decision in August, but he went ahead and committed to A&M. So, right now we're waiting on Xavier Crowell, the running back from Alabama, announcing this week. I think he's probably going to end up going to Alabama. So after that, there's not really a running back Texas has been actively after in the last few months that wouldn't be committed somewhere. So not to say they can't keep recruiting KJ Edwards, they can't keep recruiting Crowell even into the season, but just makes it a little bit more challenging. Maybe that's not the biggest position of need. They have pretty good depth there, but you still want to assign at least somebody in the cycle at the position, and maybe look at the portal beyond that. And then tight end, wide receiver, still numbers to fill there. But yeah, I think that's kind of that. Offensive line, linebacker was where I would kind of point to the most.
Hank Diabell wins the Elite 11. Talk about his performance and what you thought of it, and if you've talked to him since.
Yeah. So we almost got him on Sunday. He got out just before we could interview him, but obviously, we talked to Dia plenty. He's all Texas. There's no cause for concern there about where his commitment stands. He only took one visit this summer, and that was to Texas. He's been recruiting heavy, trying to get guys to join him. So, but yeah, first Texas quarterback commit ever to win the Elite 11 Finals MVP. We have him as a 5-star already. I would imagine he'll probably climb a little bit higher now that he has that honor to his name. I think we have him number 5 in the country at quarterback. So, if you're winning the Elite 11 final MVP, you go out and do another season like you had last year with, playing in that competitive league he plays in South Florida. I think he could probably climb even higher than, maybe top 15 overall kind of player. So, but yeah, all the reviews about him last week, accuracy, he's moving around obviously at full strength now after he got back from that lower body injury he had late in the season. So, the poise is there, he's hitting at different arm angles, different routes, it was all there for him. So he had, I think, top to bottom, he had the most consistent week. I don't think it was ever, he was in the top 2-3 guys on each day of competition, whether it was like the pro day simulation, the 7-on-7, or just, routes on air. He was doing it at a high level at every checkpoint. So big time performance from him. And, you can see why Texas has liked him so much for as long as they have.
So, you hinted at this in the Stampede about Trenton Henderson, the 5-star edge out of Pensacola, Florida. What do you think Texas is in the final 3, right?
Yes. And so he put out a top 3 yesterday. I think it's really 2. I think it's Texas or Florida for him. So, he showed up on campus 2 weeks ago on an unofficial visit. They were able to get him. I think he canceled a USC official to come out to Austin again for an official this past weekend. With what, had Wesley not committed, I think, maybe I'd feel a little bit more optimistic about Texas's chances here. Not to say they're not like pushing hard to try to get him. But the belief has been Florida's kind of the likely landing spot for Trenton Henderson. And so he's announcing on July 2nd. So that's another, week and a day for Texas to try to, continue to make inroads there. But I think that's what they're going to have to do. I think there's more recruiting to be done. I think Florida had a pretty good grip on it entering this weekend. In terms of like NIL, I don't know the number. He's looking for his recruitment, but it seems like Florida's kind of been in charge of that one. So we'll see. But Texas likes him a lot. Again, like Wesley doesn't change anything. They want Trenton Henderson into the class as well. And I think that's a spot
Bookends.
they're willing to, in terms of NIL resources, I think putting money towards those premium positions is what Texas is willing to do.
Bookends, baby. Bookends.
Yeah.
Zay, you got one more?
Yeah, I do. Caden Porthrow. How do you pronounce it, Hank? The tight end?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about 6'6", 210, out of Georgia. Talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, he's a stud. That was kind of an interesting one. Like, was he going to show up this weekend? Texas has been recruiting him pretty heavily, but it's been kind of quiet on the Texas front. It seems more like he's looking at Georgia, Florida. I think they had a really good visit. He came out with his parents. Texas, I think, has done enough to like where he's like seriously, because I think Georgia has kind of been the inside track team there for a while. And I still think that's the case. I think you just look at Georgia. He's in Georgia. They missed on Mark Bowman just like Texas did. And Georgia has a pretty good, track record on tight ends the last few years. Texas does too, but I think things point to Georgia more in terms of like that's a guy they're not going to miss on. So checking with sources after this weekend, that's where I still kind of land that he's going to end up with Georgia. But I do think Texas is probably number 2 for him. So if something crazy happens or he has second thoughts on the Bulldogs, but Texas is in on the kid from California, Keavi Brown, who came out for an official this past weekend. He's a 3-star, but he looks a lot like Caden Prothro in terms of like his build. He's the son of former UFC fighter Travis Brown, so he's got some UFC to him.
Travis Brown's a tough.
You gotta like that about physicality levels. And then Hezi Kent, who's a different body type, more of an inline type guy that's pushing 6'5", 300 at tight end. So you're not going to split him out and run fades to him, but a guy that has enough athleticism to do a few things, but you're probably going to use more for blocking. I think Hezi Kent, Keavi Brown, those are kind of the 2 guys to watch at tight end right now. Not to say not to keep an eye on Prothro, but I think that's going to end up Georgia.
What's the latest on Caden Finley?
Yeah, so that's actually getting interesting. There was a buzz earlier in the spring that he was really feeling Notre Dame. I think the prevailing thought was Texas could win out in the end, even though Notre Dame had some momentum. But after this visit, we're hearing more about Notre Dame still than we are Texas, which, I know people don't want to hear that. Obviously, he's a Texas legacy. You want to keep him home, but seems like there's some growing Notre Dame chatter on that one. I think he's announcing July 4th. So, some time to go, but it's a weird year for receiver recruiting. Texas has 3 guys committed, if you can include Jermaine Bishop, which you can. Cohen Brown, who I think entering the summer, Texas wasn't sure about which direction they were going to go with Cohen Brown, and then they decided to push for him, and they really like him and think he has a lot of upside. And then Chris Stewart, who just shut down his recruitment and saw with Texas. So you have 2 under the radar guys that could be difference makers down the line, than Jermaine Bishop, who's obviously superstar levels. So I would imagine Texas wants to add 1 more. I think getting Emmett Mosley this past cycle in the portal maybe gives them a little bit more of a luxury to not need to take a 4th if they don't want to, if it's not the right guy. And this is not to say, they're not still pushing for Caden Finley. I think they are. I think they would really like to have him in the class, but looks like it might go Notre Dame. And then we're seeing Jalen Lott trend more to USC as well. You look at Jalen Lott, Jermaine Bishop, they're very similar in terms of the style of prospect to like 2-way players. So we'll see if they circle back on any other receivers or try to bring in any guys in the fall. But Finley seems to be really the only wide receiver target they're working on right now, and we'll see how kind of how it ends up come decision day.
Is he a burner, Hank, or is he a thicker?
He's a little bit thicker, more of a kind of like a possession style guy. Whereas I think Cohen Brown maybe more of that speed type, and obviously Jermaine Bishop is a burner as well. So there's a need in that class for more of that possession type guy, like a Caden Finley.
Yeah. And obviously Texas baseball has been super active.
Yeah.
In the transfer portal. Any thoughts on on Schlossnagel's haul?
Yeah, I mean, you've been covering it, covering awesome for Horns 24/7. I mean, just yesterday alone, you land 2 difference maker. How do you say the Stanford shortstop's name? Timo.
Timo Becerra.
I mean, he looks like a stud. And then obviously the Notre Dame catcher.
Carson
numbers.
Tinney.
Yeah, numbers speak for himself. So, I mean, they're putting together a nice little group for next year, adding some pitching depth and potential starters. I mean, these guys. I think one site had him as like the number 3 portal class so far. Whoever does those rankings, I mean, what 64th? I don't know. I saw a ranking having them as number 3, but big time players. They're adding. I don't have the list fully in front of me. I couldn't name every one of them, but just yesterday alone kind of just shows the level they're recruiting at.
Yeah. Hank, great stuff, my man. We know you're going 100 miles an hour. Everybody needs to get over to horns247.com and read all this incredible content from Hank and Jordan Scruggs and Will. And of course, Eric Henry and I are churning out, football, get y'all lathered up for football season and baseball. So, Hank, thanks so much, man. Let's do it again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate
All right. There he is, the MVP, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, Hank South. I'm telling you, Zay, I am loving. Now it's June. Signing days in December. But if Texas can hang on to these guys, these defensive tackles, Richie Wesley, Alan Clark, I'm telling you.
Now, you've been high on Alan Clark for a while. Like, ever since he touched down, you've been very high on him and heard really good things. And clearly, hey, he's putting the proof to the pudding. Like, the dude's been solid. And
yeah, like maybe we need Alan Clark helping Johnny Nansen on the old Tyler Atkinson.
what does that mean?
Well, Alan Clark, everything he's touching is turning to commitment.
Hey, let's not knock Polynesian Whisper. Let's not knock what he does, man. Let's give him some time. The dude is from Georgia.
I know.
Like, it's a lot different. It's a little difficult to recruit in Kirby.
Kenny Baker, who's from Georgia.
Yeah. Let Johnny Nansen do his thing. I see people online hating on Johnny Nansen too.
What?
Yes, people on X and Twitter.
What are they hating on?
Saying that Johnny can't close the deal, saying that he needs help, like what you're saying.
Well, I was just goofing around.
I know, but they ain't goofing around. They like,
you got other people who ain't goofing around.
They said Johnny needs help. Somebody get Johnny some help. Sark, come on in. Allen, Kenny, Pete, Dwayne, Mark Orfei, help. And I'm over here like, yo, can we give Johnny some time, please?
Can we give him a little something?
Give him a little time, man. Not everybody's way is, everybody's method is different. Approach is different. Personalities are different. Like, it's going to be really hard to get a brother out of Georgia.
It is.
All I'm saying, like Kirby, usually he just got to show up, be like, hey, you see this dude? Yeah, NFL. This guy, NFL. You see these rings I got? Yeah. Going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And you're going to be hometown faithful. Like, you get to go home. I'll let you go home every now and then. That's just what? Probably a 2-hour drive for homeboy. That ain't nothing.
Man, I'm liking this class, man. You got Hayward Howard, the 6'2" corner. You got Chris Stewart. You got Cohen Brown, who's a burner. I mean, Jermaine Bishop, he could be the next. He could be the next Xavier Worthy. Yeah, man. I'm liking this 2026 recruiting class, especially the top of it. My God, Dia Bell, Jermaine Bishop, you're top of the. You got 15 commits right now in 26. The highest ranked, 5 highest ranked commits. Okay, let's go 6. Okay, let's go 7. Are Dia Bell, Jermaine Bishop, who it sounds like it's going to be a wide receiver as opposed to a corner. Richard Wesley, best edge rusher out of California since Kayvon Thibodeau. Defensive tackle Vodney Cleveland, the number 52 ranked player in the country. Dylan Berriman out of Monroe, Louisiana, the 95 ranked player in the country. And my man Corey Wells from Petal, Mississippi, who's national prospect ranked number 170. And then Haywood Howard, the 6'2 corner from Nolens. I'm liking that. I'm liking all that. Let's bring in Chris Hummer, see what he likes. Hole-in-one Hummer. Hole-in-one Hummer having the golf year of his life in 2025. Hummer, how's it going, man? You been rolling in the putts? What's going on?
I haven't played around, and I went to the range like 2 weeks ago, practiced some shit on my button. I haven't played around since like April, probably. So it's been a minute. Okay. I haven't tried to recapture the glory yet. Like you hit that peak, and I'm like Rory McIlroy, right? Like you hit your peak as a golfer, and then you just don't feel as motivated. So
yeah. Hummer, you following the? I know you're all over the portal. You are the king of the portal, and you have amazing context on the national college football scene. But are you following the Texas recruiting right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow it as like I'm not Hank South by any means. Who is really? But
who is Hank?
Hank South, who ran a marathon just for fun. Y'all should ask him about that. Not like an actual marathon. He like just decided to run like 23 miles like one day randomly. So you should talk to him about that. But
I ran a marathon for fun, one and done.
Which one did you do?
I did the Paris Marathon in 2002.
There are worse ones to run, Chip.
I know. It's kind of a weird story, but we'd heard that was a great marathon to run because it takes you through all the scene, the great sights of Paris, and it's flat. And it does exactly that. So if you've got a wild hair and you really want to go do a marathon that's also a tourist visit, tour, whatever, Paris.
And I would not recommend the Austin Marathon because it is just a bunch of hills for 20.
A lot of hills.
Yeah, a lot of hills. Not out on that. I don't even like running the Cat 5K here because it's too many hills. Like,
yeah.
I don't know about that.
I don't even like running up the stairs, Hummer. What the hell are you talking about? Good grief, man.
My cardio at this point is just like pickleball. Like I gave up on the pickup basketball basically because full court is just way too much effort at this point. Like I'm waiting for my age to match my game, which is the old man half court game. So like I feel like when I get a little closer to 40, I can start asking people just to play half.
Yeah, pickleball. We just found out this week that Nick Foles is like a national doubles and mixed doubles champion in pickleball.
That does not surprise me. He's got some reach. You know who else is like surprisingly like not to the fame level of Nick Foles, and also like I realize we're in Austin and most people know who Nick Foles is, and very few people know who Brad Crawford is in Austin. My coworker Brad Crawford and Chips as well. He won the South Carolina pickleball championship like for the whole state last year in his age bracket.
Wow.
Singles or doubles?
I believe it was singles.
Wow.
The man doesn't eat sugar. Like he's a machine. Like he's a machine in content, and he's a machine like in the nutrition. He like picked up pickleball like 2 years ago randomly, and it's just like I guess like a state champion. So
How about that?
meanwhile, the only thing I do well is like I'm like 60-10 online in NCAA football. So like very equivalent skills.
Let's go.
Yeah, yeah. But
Do you have thoughts on the 2026 game and the rankings, the ratings?
I haven't seen too many. I saw Jeremiah Smith was a 99 overall, which feels appropriate. I saw that the coaches finally have more than one freaking outfit, man. Like before, you had two options. It was like a long sleeve polo and a windbreaker. It looked ridiculous. But no, I'm mostly wondering like how the game mechanics changed. But sorry, I didn't mean to take y'all down into a rabbit hole. But I would like to see.
Talk about it.
I would love to see Dynasty expanded upon for sure. Road to Glory was awful last game. That needs to certainly have more content. And
yeah, break down what Road to Glory is for Chip, because he's Atari. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it's Atari. Yeah. Well, what was the old game like Duck Hunt back in the day? That was my jam.
Yeah, that was mine. I own that.
Yeah, there you go. Road to Glory is a mode where you like it used to be you started as a high school recruit, right? And you get to pick like what college you're going to go to and like do a ceremony. And then you play through a whole career. But in Road to Glory in this game, like you started in college, you basically just got to pick which college you want to go to. Like a 5-star recruit could go to top tier schools. 4-star recruit could go to mid-tier schools, but you wouldn't get to play right away. 3-star recruit couldn't even go to like a lot of P4 schools. And you play out a career, but like the way they had it set up is you could only be like a quarterback or receiver, running back, or a linebacker. You couldn't play a lot of other positions. Like there was actually no content. You didn't get to control all the plays. Like you had the plays picked for you. It was a mess of a mode, man. I would not have recommended it for anybody. But it's supposed to be expanded this time, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah. How do you feel about the coaches being involved, Hummer? Because now when you see the deluxe edition picture, you see guys like Ryan Day, you see Lane Kiffin, and you see James Franklin. And that makes me think that EA actually went to these campuses and kind of picked these coaches' brains on their playbook and what they would allow to be on the game and stuff.
Yeah, I actually thought the playbooks, and I mean, like, I am not going to pretend to be a football head to the point where, like, I know the intricacies of Coastal Carolina's playbook. But I remember talking to like some players and some coaches at some points, and they said like it wasn't like too inaccurate. Like a lot of their like base concepts were part of the game. Like, and like when I play the game, I play with Alabama's playbook, right? And like a lot of what Kalen DeBoer does. In terms of his formations and how he kind of stacks things, and some of the like things they do offensively are in there. So I think it's like I would assume it's like somewhat realistic. I don't know if I'm Jeremiah Bishop, I'm going to be like looking at the routes that some of the Texas receivers are running in the game and trying to learn off of that, but. I think for a fan, it's like not a terrible resource to understand like what your favorite team does.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hummer, have you turned in your predictions yet for like the SEC?
I think the only time I've turned in because I usually do predictions in July, but Dave Campbell's, I think, asked me for my predictions at one point, and I'm pretty sure I picked LSU to win the SEC. I'd have to go back and look. But
you feel good about that?
No, but I think there's legitimately like 4 or 5 teams that could win the SEC. And I have questions about Texas. I have questions about Georgia. I have questions about LSU too, but I just think I really like LSU's ceiling this year. And I think the schedule sets up pretty well for them. So I went with the Tigers, but like Garrett Nussmeier has to stop throwing interceptions. Garrett Nussmeier has to stop forcing the ball. The receivers have to stay healthy. Harold Perkins has to look like Harold Perkins again. The defensive tackle they acquired from South Florida has to be good. The secondary has to be improved. Like you could do that for the top 4 or 5 teams in the SEC period. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I was just trying to be different or whatever, but I did go with LSU.
Well, I do think there are holes. There are questions about a number of the teams you just mentioned, like LSU, Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss. I mean, if you're looking for a sleeper, would it be Florida?
Florida or Auburn, yeah.
Okay.
I think Florida and Auburn, particularly Auburn, I think they're just as talented as the other kind of top tier teams in the SEC. For Auburn, it's a matter of Jackson Arnold looking like the 5-star recruit he was and not the guy that was playing for Oklahoma last year. For Florida, DJ Lagway has to be healthy, obviously. He's been dealing with shoulder injury all year. And they've got to stay healthy. I think you'd probably argue their secondary has to take a step forward. You have to hope that like somebody like J. Michael Sturdivant, a Dallas area kid who transferred in from UCLA, can emerge as the type of player he was earlier in his career, not how he played last year. But I like Auburn and Florida a lot. Like it would not surprise, like it's a longer shot, but if you told me that Florida or Auburn was going to be in the SEC championship game in like 4 months, like I wouldn't be shocked. I could be like, that's kind of weird. What happened to Georgia? What happened to Texas? What happened to Alabama? What happened to LSU? But I could see it. Like both the teams are talented enough to do it.
Yeah, Hummer. You think about Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton Jr. They might be the best.
That's
duo,
disgusting. That's
right.
Disgusting. That is a disgusting duo. It's them or Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Like that's really the only argument nationally. Like, and Eric Singleton is more established than Carnell Tate is, just like Jeremiah Smith is more established than Cam Coleman. But like that is a disgusting duo. And they also they took in this kid from Wake Forest who had like 600 yards last year. NFL scouts love him. They consider him like a potential day 2 pick. They have like 3 guys last year who were freshmen or sophomores that had more than 300 yards passing. Like they are set up, Auburn, in their receiving group to be really, really good. They just have to have the caveat being like somebody has to throw them the ball on time.
Yeah. Okay. Oklahoma and A&M, where do you put them in like sleeper category?
I don't even think A&M's a sleeper. I think A&M's a legit, like, I think the tiers in my head are Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, but A&M is on that next tier right next to, Ole Miss probably. And then you have another tier a little further down to me that's Florida and Auburn. And I don't know. I'm not as high on South Carolina this year as most people are. I think they're going to take a step back. And same thing with Missouri, but I think A&M's right there. And like, we should remember that like A&M was really beat up at the end of last year. And all they had to do to make the SEC championship game was beat Texas. Obviously, like, did not come particularly close to doing that, given how the offense played. But if Marcel Reed takes a step forward, they get their running back room healthy again, they get a little bit better play from their wide receivers, they're going to be really good, because that offensive line that A&M has is one of the 5 or 6 best offensive line units in the entire country. So I think A&M's going to be really good. It just really depends on if Marcel Reed can elevate, and those wide receivers they brought in could help him do that.
Do we they lose obviously Skirton and Shmar Stewart. They have Torian York still, who's no Anthony Hill, but
but Torian York is still like, if Anthony Hill's the best inside or off-ball linebacker in college football, Torian York's in the top 5. So
yeah.
Which is funny given how their recruitment's worked, right? Like A&M loses Anthony Hill and then settles for Torian York, and here they are as 2 of the best junior linebackers in the country. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on a.
No. I like that, because I'm asking you, where's A&M's defense?
It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be fine. Like, it's one of those things where, like, if you're Texas, right, like, this year, you're expecting your defense to kind of pick up the slack from an offense that might start a little slow with all the changes. And if you're A&M, like, you have to hope that like your offense gets a little bit better to make up for the fact that your front 4, like just the front 4, is probably going to be a little worse. But it's not like A&M's front 4 isn't bad. Like, I don't know if he's like a national name, but Cassius Howe, who's in his 2nd year after transferring in from the MAC, I think is like one of the like top 50 players in college football. He's really good, super disruptive. Like Albert Regis, their nose tackle, has been a multi-year contributor for them. Like TJ Searcy comes in from Florida, where he was a borderline starter from them last year. It's not like A&M's going to be bad up front. They won't be elite. They don't have like 2 early round draft picks like they did last year, but they're going to be good enough on that side of the ball as long as the offense becomes above average. And last year it was anything but above average.
I think A&M has the most returning starters in the SEC.
Makes sense, yeah. And a lot of that's in the secondary where they're going to be really good. Yeah, you're right. Texas A&M has the 6th highest returning production in the country, according to ESPN, which is the highest in the SEC. And that's a lot of guys left. It was a really young team last year too. So I think I would count out A&M at your own peril in the SEC because I think they're going to be good.
What are you expecting year 2 from Marcel Reed and Colin Klein's offense, Summer?
I mean, he has to throw the ball better. I know that sounds reductive, and Colin Klein's system is one where like he's certainly taken advantage of players who can run, and Marcel Reed can certainly run, but at the end of the day, like you need to expand the offense a little bit more with Marcel Reed. I think he completed like 61% of his passes last year. I'm pulling it up now. Yeah, 61.3% of his passes. He only averaged 7.8 yards per attempt. Like and he only threw it 240 times, which is just not that many for a high-level quarterback in college football. You want him to be able to push the ball to different levels of the defense, and they just couldn't stretch the field vertically last year, A&M. You want him to be able to work through reads a little faster. I think we all were at Zay, were you at the Texas game last year in College Station?
No.
Well, Texas got Marcel Reed off his spot very quickly. That pass rush was very effective. And he needs to stay in the pocket a little longer. But if he can become a top 25 quarterback nationally, like that's a recipe for A&M to win 10 or 11 games. Like he just needs to kind of capture some of that potential he showed last year. Like I don't even think Marcel Reed is that different than like we talk about. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. The South Carolina quarterback,
Lenore Sellers.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lenore Sellers. We talk about Lenore Sellers like he's a top 10 quarterback coming into the season, and he was really good last year. But I really don't think there's a huge difference in like the production last year from Sellers to Reed. Sellers is a bit better of a runner. I think he showed a little bit more as a passer, but I don't think the gap is huge. And like, if Marcel Reed can even get like half as much attention as Lenore Sellers did last year, with his improvements from year 1 to year 2, I think Marcel Reed's going to be very good.
We're going to talk about Tom Herman here in a second.
What's the context for that?
So Saturday Down South did a rise and fall story on Tom Herman.
Okay.
Do you think he ever coaches an FBS program again?
As a head coach?
Yeah.
I would be surprised at this point.
I mean,
he's not like, how do I put this? I think we all know, right? Like at Texas, he lost his way and lost his sway because he rubbed people the wrong way. At FAU, like I think generally the opinion on him was pretty positive from the people he worked with. I think some of it was like a lack of organization that really cost Tom Herman this time around, and maybe a lack of adjustment to the era that is NIL. And maybe I'm wrong. Like Tom Herman's a big enough name. It's had outside success at enough places to where somebody would consider it. But it went so badly at FAU last year that it's hard for me to envision another FBS team taking a chance on him, especially as we know, like depending on who you ask, the opinions on Tom Herman, the person, can vary considerably. And it's not like he's going to get glowing reviews as a as a CEO of a company in some cases. So
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have like a lot of people who've worked with him don't have a lot of positive things to say.
Yeah, and I'm in all fairness, I know some people, and I work with some people like at 24/7 who actually worked with Tom Herman and like speak glowingly of him, but he's also like a demanding guy and ask a lot, and like he can be eccentric, and you put all those things together and you don't adjust well enough, and you can end up in a situation where you get fired after year two, and it's too bad too. Like I understand Tom Herman wanting to get back in, and like at a certain point, you just have to take a job, right? But like you gotta make that job work. And in some ways, I think he picked the wrong job. Falling Willie Taggart wasn't the most talented roster in the world at FAU, and he paid the price for it. And I don't know if he'll get another opportunity because it's one thing to be a retread. It's another thing to be a second retread, and those guys don't usually get jobs again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn, Hummer, BYU's doing big things. They get the #1 quarterback in the 2026 class, Ryder Lyons, and they got the #1 player in basketball this upcoming year, and AJ DeBansa, who's supposedly getting like $8 million. What's going on down there in Provo?
Well, I mean, I think we all knew that like the NIL era would, well, at least in AJ DeBance's case, the NIL era opens new doors for schools. And BYU is a really wealthy school. Like they have a wealthy donor base. They're a national donor base. Like I think we forget for a long time, like the two national independent programs were Notre Dame and BYU. Obviously, probably slightly different reputations, but like that is a school with deep pockets, and they've decided to push their chips in. I'm very curious how the AJ DeBansa experiment goes. Like he's very likely to be the #1 or #2 overall pick in the NBA draft this time next year. Hopefully, like he won't be a Dallas Maverick, because if the Mavericks are back in the lottery, I'm gonna be very upset. But like this is a situation where like BYU is spending a lot of money, and in the case of Ryder Lyons, like he's of the Mormon faith, and he's taken a mission. So I think that certainly works in BYU's favor when recruiting somebody with that religious background. I'm not saying that's the only reason BYU got him, by the way, right? Like recruited him well, like spent a lot of money, but like that was a nice kind of thing in your back pocket when recruiting somebody.
Hummer, do you think Steve Spurrier is just trying to stir the pot he went on some podcast. He was talking about Texas and Arch Manning, and he's saying if Arch Manning is this good, where we're already giving him the Heisman, why wasn't Sarkisian playing him ahead of the other one?
I mean, if I was Steve Spurrier, I would do whatever I wanted, and that's probably stir the pot all the time because that's just his brand, right? Like I would do the same thing, and yeah, I think so. Like right, like, and I also think like the problem with sports, right, is it's a team game and it's about winning above all, right? But it's also a thing where you have to manage personalities and relationships matter. And the idea, like on paper, right, like given Quinn Ewers' injury and like how he's talked about that in the time since, it makes sense to put Quinn Ewers on the bench and just tell him to go sit over there and play Arch Manning. But like in reality, like Quinn Ewers did a ton for the Texas program. His frankly family did a ton for the Texas program. Like it's hard for somebody like Steve Sarkisian with a really positive relationship with Quinn Ewers to just tell that guy to go sit on the bench. And like maybe he should be criticized for that. Like Nick Saban won a national championship largely because he benched his Quinn Ewers and Jalen Hurts for Tua Tagovailoa in the national championship game. Texas obviously didn't get to that point. But I mean, it's not like an unfair criticism necessarily, but I don't think it's a criticism that entirely examines like what it is to be a CEO of a football program and have relationships with humans. And he knows that just as well as anybody. He just didn't care because he would play whatever quarterback at any time he wanted.
Yeah. The fun and gun.
The fun and gun.
Zay, you got one more?
Yeah, I got one more. Hummer, Florida State quarterback and Boston College transfer, Thomas Castellanos, or Castellano, excuse me, said that they don't got Saban to save them about their week 1 clash against Alabama. And he also says he tore up the ACC. So now that he has more talent down there in Tallahassee, he feels like he could tear up the ACC again with Florida State.
Yeah, I'm never going to complain about good quotes as a journalist. I would wonder how FSU PR felt after that one. But I mean, we'll see. Thomas Castellanos is a really good fit for Gus Malzahn. I don't think Thomas Castellanos is going to close the gap between a 2-10 Florida State team and Alabama, personally. But I guarantee there's some like bold printed letters up on the facility of Alabama right now for week 1, and I don't know if you want to poke that bear, even Nick Saban or not. But the Bill O'Brien, like the Boston College stuff, is wild. Like just throwing your teammates under the bus like that. That's just, the Nick Saban thing. Like I don't care. That's fun, right? Like the Boston College thing is wild for somebody that's in a leadership position to say. But again, like all 4 quarterbacks and college athletes making colorful quotes. So I'm never going to tell anybody not to talk.
Do you think Florida State can win the ACC?
No.
What'd you think of Malzahn's move from head coach at Central Florida to going back to offensive coordinator with Mike Norvell?
Well, I mean, at the end of last season, Gus Malzahn was quietly on the hot seat anyway, right? Like, and I think this is, I don't know if he would have been fired. It wasn't like just talking to people nationally, like in agent circles and administrative circles, like that was one of the jobs where like people were like, this is not getting public attention, but like it's very much a possibility that it gets let go. I've had some people describe it to me as like a preemptive strike, kind of like Chip Kelly leaving for Ohio State, right? So that's kind of how I view that. Gus, I also think, has had some personal stuff where like the ability to just go into FSU, don't have to worry about being this head coach anymore, don't have to recruit nearly as much as you used to. It's a much easier job. So it makes sense on paper, but I don't think it's going to have a Chip Kelly like impact on FSU. Like I think FSU will be better next year. Like how could they not be? Like they have to be better next year, but I don't expect like Gus Malzahn to make a difference and them to be winning like 10 games again next year. I think more likely we're looking at a team that ranges from like 6 to 8 wins in 2025.
You have a feel for who you think wins the Big 12?
I mean, it should be Texas Tech. Like, I mean, who doesn't like Joey McGuire, right? Like Joey McGuire. And I'm Chip. I'm sure you know Joey McGuire just like I do. Like everybody likes Joey McGuire, but like this
Joey
is
Juice.
What's up?
Joey Juice.
Joey Juice. Yes. And I mean, like, but at the end of the day, like this is a roster built to win now, and I think there's like a fair amount of pressure on Joey McGuire with the way this is spent. And I'm picking Texas Tech because I think they have the best roster in the league, and I think they paid the most in the league, and I think they should win the league. But do I know if they're going to win the league? Like, no, but I do think I remember talking about Texas like this in 2022, right? Like that was the year I think it was 2022. Was it 2023? The year before they went to the SEC. So that was 2023. I remember saying like Texas has to win the Big 12 this year. Like the league is wide open. Like the roster is there. The talent is there. And I feel the exact same way about Texas Tech. Like Texas Tech should win the Big 12 and there should be a lot of pressure on Joey McGuire and that staff. So I'm picking Texas Tech. And I think if they fail to win the league, it's a bit of a failure for the roster they put together.
All right. Last thing from me, Hummer, the college football playoff format. What are we going to get? Are we going to get 5-11? Or are we going to get 4-4-2-2-3-1?
I would be lying at this point if I said I knew. I think most people in the industry consider the 5-11. What is that? That's math, right? 16 to be the most likely at this point. But the Big Ten doesn't want that. I think the SEC has shifted its mindset, but like I don't think everybody in the league is convinced of that. Obviously, the Big 12 stated preference is 5-11. I think the ACC would prefer that as well. But like ultimately it's the Big Ten and the SEC that have to come to a commonality and an agreement there. And I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I do know that the Big Ten is losing the PR battle on that. It's interesting. Greg Sankey seems to give an interview every 3 days, and I don't think I've seen Tony Petitti give an interview this year. So it's an interesting kind of dichotomy on how the two sides are handling that. But I think at least for now, I would bet 5-11, but I'm not positive on that for sure.
Yeah, the Big Ten they'll go 5-11 if the SEC will go to 9 conference games.
And I mean,
come on, Greg.
Yes, I mean, I would love to. The SEC should go to 9 conference games, but I mean, it is what it is. Like everything's a bargaining chip, and there are way too many schools in the SEC that are just there to get checks anyway, that are concerned about making bowl games. But that's a conversation for a different day.
Hummer, you're the man.
Hey, I got one for Hummer before you go, because I know Hummer's quietly an NBA fan. Mavs should get Cooper Flag tomorrow. How do you feel about that? What do you think about OKC winning the title? What do you think about Durant going to the Rockets?
Pumped for Cooper Flag. We don't deserve him, but I'm happy to have him. Hopefully Daniel Gafford, who just signed a new contract, gets traded because we desperately need a guard that can create. So Daniel Gafford or PJ Washington are the trade chips there. Hopefully we get Colin Sexton. Kevin Durant to Houston. I don't know how they got so little for Kevin Durant if you're Phoenix, but good for the Rockets. Basketball in Texas is going to be elite next year. It's loaded, and happy for the Thunder. Cool to see an organization in a small market built that way have success. But I was rooting for the Pacers, and I was devastated to see Tyrese Halliburton tear his Achilles. Like those calf injuries, man. Like if I was the NBA superstar and I had a calf injury, I don't know if I could play even in Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Yeah, that's what happened to Durant.
That's what happened.
He had a calf injury, and then he had an Achilles.
Yeah, happened to Klay Thompson. Like it happened to
Dame Lillard.
Yeah, calf injury. Yeah, it's just
Jason
I don't know.
Tatum. It's bad.
So I've had calf injuries, and I use that roller bar like crazy on it. Why are you laughing?
I just love it. I love it.
Like every time I go out to play tennis, I got that roller bar all up and down the calf and ankle and Achilles. All right, there's you.
I've never used one of the Achilles, but maybe I'll have to start.
Yeah.
It's really like the worst though is when you get what's that muscle group called where it's like the outside of your hip down to your knee.
Oh, the IT band?
Yeah, dude, that sucks on those things.
Oh yeah.
It's the absolute worst. But yeah, stretch kids.
Stretch.
Yeah.
Hummer, you're the best. Let's do it again next week.
I guess. I'll see y'all.
There he is. Hole-in-one Hummer.
Hole-in-one Hummer.
That's good stuff right there, kids. That's good stuff. All right. So Tom Herman, this Saturday Down South, did a decade after Tom Herman was the it coach. And if you were buying stock 10 years ago, the stock was soaring. Now the stock is worthless. And they talk about how he, lost the PR battle at Texas by doing things like flipping double birds at the Longhorn Network on signing day.
Hilarious.
And how he was trolling Missouri's quarterback during the Texas Bowl while Texas was going 7-6. But where it all went to hell for Tom Herman, and Saturday Down South doesn't talk about this, was the Eyes of Texas situation. So in 2020, you had the Eyes of Texas situation, very sensitive for Texas, obviously, especially on the heels of William Floyd being killed by Minnesota police. Everything was heightened. The black student athletes at Texas were demanding that the Eyes of Texas be rewritten or the school song be changed. And Chris Del Conte went to the coaches and said, listen, your student athletes don't have to sing the song. They don't have to show their horns. They can protest if they want, but it has to be done together. So if their protest is to lock arms, then do it together. And that's like Del Conte had to talk to Logan Eggleston about that with the volleyball team. So Del Conte talks to all the coaches and says, that's the deal. They don't have to sing it. They don't have to support it. They can, but they have to be together during it. Are we good? Are we clear? And the coaches all said yes. So then they're going off to the Red River shootout, and Del Conte even went to Herman and said, do you want me to talk to the team? Because this is important. And Herman said, no, we're good. And then they go, they play, they lose in 4 overtimes. And so Oklahoma's doing the golden hat on the field. There was no band. There was no Texas band. So they were playing the Eyes of Texas over a loudspeaker. Some student, some of the players thought it was over. They missed it. They started leaving. And there's photos of Sam Ehlinger alone on the field during the Eyes of Texas. You remember that?
Yeah.
Well, that was the death knell for Tom Herman, because Herman had already sort of, made some comments to the big money donors at Texas saying, stuff like, would you give these players a job when they're done? And it was sort of combative, and they were just like, you don't get it, dude. And really, he was sort of DOA at that point at Texas. That's when they started talking to Urban Meyer. And as a consultant, and Bob Stoops, like, look at our program. What do you think? And they end up with Steve Sarkisian. Now, the exit interviews that were done on Tom Herman were terrible. Like, they talked to some, Del Conte, and they talked to student athletes. I think Sam Ehlinger was one of them. And the players were like, he didn't give a bleep about us. Like, there was no us. It was coach and players. And Herman came from that fear-based mentality of Urban Meyer, but Urban Meyer is the original. Herman is the ripoff. And I just remember he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, the quarterback at Houston when they were good, and then he ended up being a receiver with the Eagles. He hated Herman. Like, when Houston had their great season and they beat Florida State and Jimbo in the Peach Bowl, that quarterback hated Herman and said, like, he kisses us on the cheek as we walk out to play, and he dog cusses us up one side, down the other in practice.
You ain't kissing me, Tom. I don't care what the relationship is.
It was like, they were like, that was fake. So it is bizarre. I don't know that I've told this story on Texas Sports Unfiltered, but he joined Austin Country Club, and there's a waiting list. It's like 5 years. Mac Brown had been waiting like 5 years. And the new president of the Austin Country Club is like, you know what? Mac is up. Let's get Mac in, and let's expedite Herman through as well, which is a big deal. So Mac gets in, Herman gets in. Herman's first time on the golf course, he brings his own beer. He's wearing cargo shorts. And they have like 3 carts and only 1 cart of golfers. So it's like a Caddyshack party going on. And the members are like, what on earth? And so the president of the club is like, hey, dude, we moved heaven and earth to get you in here. You're going to be out of here almost as fast if you don't like pay attention to the rules and stuff. So Herman, from what I heard, it was egos gone wild once he got the Texas job. Like, he didn't want to hear from anybody about how to build his staff. He ignored a guy like Tim Brewster, who's a recruiting machine. The guy who recruited Vince Young to Texas was willing to come and work with Herman. And Herman's like, no, he talks too much. And tried to put into the assistant coaches' contracts, if you talk to the media, you're fired. It was all fear-based, and it was a mess. Now, he won 60% of his games. He won all of his bowl games, but he lost his magic touch. And he like Urban, said, I don't know if my style works in the age of NIL. And clearly it didn't, because he went 4-8 at FAU in year 1 and was 2-8 when he got fired.
Ooh, that's it. 2 years. Dang, man, you barely moved the stuff out of the boxes at the crib.
And of course, Florida Atlantic is based in like Boca Raton, which is
nice.
Beach. Nice.
Yeah,
like if you're not,
Yeah, he's distracted.
Yeah, he's distracted. So there you go. There's the, what are your thoughts, Zay? I did all the talking on what I know of the background of Herman's tenure here.
It tracks. Like, you got to treat people well. You got to be able to bring in people who know more than you, because you don't understand the culture at University of Texas. You could learn, and there's high quality people that can help you learn that. But if your ego gets too big and you turn those people away because you feel like your ish don't stink, then yeah, it's not surprising that he's ended up where he is at this point, which is really sad because he's a bright football mind. If we're just talking about straight up football, the dude knows his stuff. The dude knows the game. But when it comes to coaching, there's way more than that. And if those things are too good for you, if you don't think those things are important, like how you treat your players and what they think of you, like that whole fear stuff, like, I like me some Bobby Knight, but a lot of things that Bobby Knight did was very wrong. But there was a time where kind of looked past it because that was just the era. Bobby Knight would, God bless his soul, he couldn't coach in today's era. Not even close.
No.
That's the biggest joke in the world. No, it's very hypothetical, but we pretty much could all agree on Bobby Knight wouldn't be able to be in this era and have success. That stuff, you gotta check that stuff, man. You gotta be able to adapt. And again,
you just said it. You got to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
And that's where I give Steve Sarkisian so much credit, because he constantly talks about it. Like Trev Alberts, the athletic director at A&M, was talking the other day about how A&M is adjusting to the House settlement. And he said, look, there's a lot of stuff we don't like, but that's the way it is. And Steve Sarkisian doesn't even say that. He just says, NIL and the transfer portal has been really good for Texas, and we just have to keep adapting. I mean, it should be really good for A&M too.
Right.
A&M has the most loyal fan base. I mean, it's up there with you name it. their fan base is so loyal because of all the goofy traditions and stuff that they all went through as regular students. Fish camp and chigga-rigga rum and all the goofy yells that they do that look so weird on Instagram when people are making fun of it. But I mean, yes, the Aggies love me and I love the Aggies, and they listen. They listen to this show.
They do. They're good people. They're nice.
I love them.
They're sweet people.
You know,
They mean well. They had a lot of heartbreak.
a lot of heartbreak, and I think they're going to be good this year. I do. I think A&M is going to be good this year.
What's good? What record's good in your opinion?
I think they have a chance to win 10 games.
All right.
I mean, I think they could be right back in the mix where they were a year ago, where it's down to Texas and Texas A&M to go to the SEC championship game. They open with UTSA. They play Utah State. They're at Notre Dame. That's a
big one.
That's a big one, but no one's expecting you to beat Notre Dame. They played for the national championship last year. You get Auburn at home. You get Mississippi State at home. You get Florida at home. Then you play at Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri with a off week in there. So you play 3 road games in a row, but there's an off week. And those are manageable road games. Arkansas, LSU, I'm not as high. Like Lance Taylor is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs about LSU, and he thinks Texas is going to take a step back.
I mean, so is Hummer. Hummer said LSU is his for the SEC.
And I don't get it. I don't see the offensive line. I don't see the difference makers at the skill positions. But whereas, like, I look at A&M, Le'Veon Moss, and Marcel Reed's a good player. He can, like, Marcel Reed went to Florida and won last year. Now he beat Graham Mertz. But yeah, I think A&M is a team that could get going. Like, I don't know how good Notre Dame is. You're playing them early. We'll see. All right. Any thoughts on that before we?
I got A&M 9-3 at best.
Yeah. Okay.
That's.
Do you identify the losses?
Yeah. Texas,
Notre Dame,
LSU, either Notre Dame or Florida. I don't know which one yet. They're going to win one of those games, though. They're going to probably beat Florida at home. I'll give them that. No, LSU, Notre Dame, they're not winning that game. So 9-3.
okay. Lose.
The way Hummer was talking about Auburn.
Right. If Jackson Arnold is, like, how much of good Jackson Arnold have we seen? I got to go find Jackson Arnold's signature win.
He got a bad draw last year in Norman.
He did. He had no offensive line. He had no skill talent. It was awful. I thought they were playing Michael Hawkins Jr. just to keep Jackson Arnold healthy. Like, they didn't want to get him killed. They were willing to let Michael Hawkins run around because he's a dual threat guy, or at least elusive. But yeah, I think A&M is they're legit. Let's see how they do at Notre Dame. All right. Let's get a couple mentions in here, and then we'll get to the commentary, the chip shot, and the right call. I'll tell you what's the right call. If you're snoring, go into the Sleep Cycle Center in Austin. Locations in the Arboretum and in Lakeway. Look, if you're snoring, guys, it's more than annoying to the person next to you. It is the sign of a possible serious health issue. And here's the great news. Dr. Chad Denman, who founded the Sleep Cycle Center, did so because sleep apnea killed his father at the age of 60. And he wants to make sure that that never happens to you or anyone you know. So another beautiful thing, you go to sleepcyclecenters.com and set up an appointment. Tell them Texas Sports Unfiltered sent you. They're going to take $100 off your sleep study. So if you're snoring, you're waking up tired, it's probably because you're waking yourself up so many times during the night you don't even know. You're not getting oxygen that you need. You're not getting deep sleep. And you sound like a chainsaw. So you go to Dr. Chad Denman. He's got the best technology for the sleep study, the best treatment options, including oral appliances, which is what I have, a mouth guard that holds my lower jaw open so I get that good oxygen and deep sleep. Go to sleepcyclecenters.com. Tell them Texas Sports Unfiltered sent you. You're going to get $100 off your sleep study. AV consultations, our guy, Tom McKay. Look, it's almost July. If you're going to have the big screen of your dreams for football season, you need to be thinking about making that call to Tom McKay and audiovisual consultations, 255-8678. From the free consultation to installation, Tom and his crew bring everything to you. So it's going to bring you the best price on big screens, surround sound, surveillance, electronic shades, new lighting. Tell them Texas Sports Unfiltered sent you. Tom's a great supporter of TSU. And cover 3. Let's go. Cover 3. I mean, the food is what is going to bring you back. The brick chicken and mac and cheese, the flatbreads, the Chop House burger, the ruby trout. And then you got happy hour every day from 3:30 to 6:30, 3:30 to close on Mondays. But you got the $7 social hour menu, which has the firecracker shrimp, the bacon deviled eggs. Oh, yeah. That's good stuff. Cover 3 Anderson, cover 3 Round Rock, and cover 2 at 183 in Lake Creek. All right, Zay. So Steve Spurrier kind of shooting off. He goes on a podcast and says they got Arch Manning already winning the Heisman. My question is, if he's that good, why did they let Quinn Ewers play all the time? Ewers was a 7th round pick. Okay, we've kind of covered this ground, and it's a little bit of rehash, but Spurrier is he's got some of the best inflammatory quotes, like trash talk quotes. Can't spell citrus without UT when Peyton Manning, was there, early 90s. And he went after Mac Brown when he was at Duke. Duke was terrible. Spurrier came in, turned Duke into a winner. Mac was still losing it. Carolina. Duke took a picture after beating Carolina on their field. It made Mac mad. And Spurrier said, what's he mad about? I won more games on that field than he has. And he called Mac and Watson, his brother, who coached at UAB and Tennessee Tech. He called them the Lose Brothers and said that their programs had drug problems.
Yo, that's taking it too far.
They get drug up and down the field.
That's taking it too far.
So Spurrier is the ultimate pot stirrer. But, when he says, what are they doing? We know that Steve Sarkisian credits Quinn Ewers for helping turn around the program. It was getting Quinn Ewers to transfer to Texas that helped get guys like A.D. Mitchell to come in and Matt Golden and Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy came in as a freshman in that 21 class. Now, that was still Casey Thompson, but, Sarkisian was saying, hey, we're going to get a top-end quarterback in here. He got Quinn in, and then, God, it was clockwork. Quinn was great early in seasons before he got hurt. He was great in the first quarter against Alabama. He was great against Alabama in 23. He's great against Michigan in 24. And then he suffered the injuries, the AC joint sprain, the sternoclavicular sprain, the ab strain. So it was a tough call. And obviously Ewers got benched in the second quarter of the Georgia game in October, and Arch came in and look, they got to Arch too. So that was a wild move. And then he brought Quinn back, and Quinn played really well in the third quarter, completed 10 of 12 passes. Texas gets back in the game, 23-15, thanks to Jahdae Barron intercepting a ball and returning it to the 9. Because when Makuba intercepted Carson Beck at the Georgia 41, Texas didn't move the ball an inch and got no points out of it, which was terrible. At home, for crying out loud. Like, go back, and that game was not a blowout from the beginning. Like, Andrew Makuba intercepted that pass when it was 0-0. Anyway, I don't fault Steve Sarkisian for sticking with Quinn Ewers. I fault Steve Sarkisian for not having a better set of play calls down on the goal line, because that shouldn't be blamed. Quinn shouldn't get blamed for that either. He shouldn't get blamed for Cam Williams totally whiffing on Jack Sawyer. Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback. I hope he's able to stay healthy and can show everyone, kind of like Jordan Hicks when he was at Texas. Jordan Hicks, when he was on the field, was great. He had knee injuries, a couple of ACLs. He was kind of like Jordan Whittington before Jordan Whittington. And then now 13 years later in the NFL, Jordan Hicks is still getting checks. So anyway, that's my chip shot for today.
No, I'm with you. Steve Spurrier, he doesn't know what's really going on. He's way on the outside and looking in. And I get it. He's very protective of the SEC. And just like a lot of these OGs from the SEC, Texas coming in and, like you say, taking all the women, taking all the money. They don't like that very much. So that hate, it just comes natural, and saying things like this, even though you don't know what's really going on. We know Quinn Ewers, all those injury problems, that definitely had something to do with his play and his production. And yeah, Sark being loyal to him, I get it. Like, I definitely get it. There were times that I wish 16 was in the game. But overall, Quinn Ewers was pretty damn good here at Texas. And now Arch is going to have his time to show that he can be pretty damn good too. So, yeah, that's Spurrier. Just hating a little bit, which, as a hater myself, I salute it.
Rodney says, I think Spurrier's worst is when he would tell players something like, it's not your fault, it's mine for recruiting you.
That's deep. That's deep.
All right, let's get to the right call.
Let's get it. Before that, though, got to give a shout out to these amazing sponsors of ours, like McCall Custom Homes. Transforming homes one dream at a time. McCall Custom Homes, renovating your home. Trust the experts. Trust the guys that can get your kitchen right, get your bathroom, outdoor space. It doesn't matter. They're licensed and insured, top quality at affordable prices, in-house architects, over 50 years of combined experience for the father and son duo, and they will handle your permitting process. They will work with your insurance, so you're not paying an arm and a leg, and they will take care of it in a timely fashion. A lot of these guys out here, they take months to do things, years to do things. McCall Custom Homes, they will be in and out of your way, and your house and home will be quite lovely. So if you want to see their amazing work, check them out. Facebook, Instagram at McCall Custom Homes. Give our boy Mike a call at 512-633-9580. That's 512-633-9580. Or shoot them an email at mike@mccallcustomhomes.com. Go to their website, McCallCustomHomesATX.com. It's McCall Custom Homes. We build value into your home. And it is hot out there. Some of y'all riding around, no AC, the check engine light always on. You have to take your car to, the dealership or take it to the shop because something else is going wrong. Hey, turn that car in. Go to Covert Bee Cave and get something different, new, pre-owned. It doesn't matter. They will take your car as a trade-in and you'll get that money back and you go do something with it by buying a luxury car at Covert Bee Cave because they are the best in the business. 7 terrific brands to choose from: Ram, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Cadillac, GMC, and Buick. We are Covert Bee Cave people. We love our Buick Encore GX. It's absolutely amazing, and you can be like us too. So if you want to go to their website, covertbeecave.com, and check out all the latest specials and inventory, you should definitely do that. Again, just went in. Wife had all these questions. They answered them. Marcus was terrific. The person who sold the car to us, Daniel, was great. Jerome, the whole team is magnificent. So go check them out. Covert Bee Cave. Nobody beats a Covert deal. Not now, not ever. All right, Chip. So I saw this video on my man Corey Moses' Twitter, X, the other day. Shout out to our guy Corey, doing a hell of a job at ABC. You're on mute.
Corey.
Yeah, I guess there was a camp going on, and he got to talk to DeAndre Moore about the upcoming season and just DeAndre Moore, what's going on with him in general. And I love DeAndre Moore. That dude, talk about a great head on your shoulders. DeAndre Moore, that leadership, that swagger, he's got it all. And I'm expecting them to have a huge season. So check out this video of DeAndre Moore by our man Corey Moses.
You talked about the St. Louis trip, of course, everyone's talking about the first situation. I want to talk about yours. You talked about the St. Louis trip, of course, everyone's talking about the first situation. I want to talk about your experience.
All right, we're having technical difficulties. So I guess we won't be checking that.
Of course, everyone's talking about the first situation. I want to talk about your experience. What was it like to go out there with Ryan and just be a part of his community and being a part of his neighborhood?
I love talking about my teammates. So Ryan, it was really great to go out there and see the impact that he has in his community. He's coming from an area where all they really have is, football. So just him coming back and giving back to the community and allowing the people to see that there's a way out and you can do it my way. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to turn to other things. So just really going back and seeing the impact that he has on his family and his community really touched me.
Yeah, now our receiver room this year is changing up now. Yeah. You're one of the big dogs. Yeah. And so what does it feel like to now be one of those leaders in that room? And now younger guys are looking up to you to lead them?
For sure. I love it. I mean, it's just what comes with the territory, really. So I had really great leaders to learn from, and Jay Witt, AD, X. So, I can just continue to set the standard and push this further for the future generations.
I just want to ask about Archer's leadership. What does that say about him? Just being out there, of course, going to different camps with y'all, traveling with y'all, and, of course, his leadership on the field. What is that like?
I think that everybody's from different places, and, just coming together and Arch being from where he's from and, going down to St. Louis and, really extending a hand to Wingo and just showing Wingo that, okay, I'm coming down to where you guys are and, coming to, the hood. Like most quarterbacks ain't going to do that. So just Arch going out there, kudos to him, and we really appreciate it.
That's good stuff right there.
That's good stuff.
That's good stuff right there. DeAndre Moore is, Jordan Whittington, I'll never forget it, Pro Day said, the guy you got to keep your eye on is DeAndre Moore. That dude is a leader. And when Jay Witt says, basically anoints the next guy, you pay attention. And Jay Witt was like, he's the next guy. And Quinn Ewers said it too. He's like, I could see that guy run in the receiver room eventually. And we're here.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love how he speaks about his teammates. He said himself he loves talking about his teammates. He loves seeing them get that attention, and he just wants to win. Like, that's the type of guy that you want on your ball club. It's not about all the touches, because we know wide receivers, they could be divas, they could be a lot. And I don't think DeAndre Moore has any of that in him. Like, it's all about the team first, and if the team has success and he might not have a bad game, he could care less about that. But he's obviously going to do his thing. And again, he's going to be a huge part of this season. I think him and Arch going to have great chemistry. Obviously, Ryan Wingo with all the talent that he brings to the table. But yeah, DeAndre Moore he made big catch after big catch this past year. And I think he's going to bring that into 2025 also.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big time.
All right, so the Oklahoma City Thunder, they had their championship parade today, which I don't know how all those folks in Oklahoma City got off today. Like, good for them. But it was I had to do an Oklahoma dig. I had to, just a little bit. They have too much success right now. I had to give them a low blow right there. But our guy, Chet Holmgren, is all toe up. Like, talk about someone, again, this dude's 7'1", but he's a $155. 2 shots, and Chet Holmgren's in another just stratosphere. And they gave this dude a mic chip. And yeah, you could tell early how drunk he was. Watch this hilarious video. Chet Holmgren, Oklahoma City Thunder parade today.
Chet, your journey has been far from easy. You have experienced broken bones, bruises, ups, downs, highs, lows. What did it take for you to get here in this moment right now?
Took everybody that's in here. It started with Clay, Sam, and Mark for believing in me enough to bring me here in the first place. Because without them, I'm never even here. All right, let me lock in. Should we put you on the mic right now? All right. But yeah, I just gotta say thank you to those 3 first. And then after that, it's all my teammates. Without them, none of this is possible. It's really a full team effort.
Yeah, Chad was toe up. I like that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is how guys celebrate during their parade after a championship. Nothing's ever going to top Tom Brady having to be carried out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers parade because he was that plastered. Because, again, it's Tom Brady. Like, this guy's as buttoned up as any athlete we've ever seen in any profession. The dude doesn't drink anything. He doesn't eat anything throughout the season. So, it doesn't take much for Tom to get toe up. And Tom said, yo, this first ring without Bill, I am going hard. I am throwing the Lombardi trophy. It doesn't matter. And I think that should show any athlete that gets the chance to win a championship. If Tom Brady can have fun and look like a drunk and get carried out of the parade, then I can too. So shout out to OKC Thunder. Have their fun. They deserve it. They're the champs. That's what it's all about.
Where was Alex Caruso?
Caruso was there.
I know, but did he get to talk?
I'm sure he did, but I think he was just chill. He said some weird things after.
That's what I would expect. I would expect him to say weird things.
Well, after they won Sunday night, he said, yeah, got me another championship. Now I got me a real one. Which Lakers fans didn't really find that quite funny. You could tell he was being sarcastic because the whole narrative, depending on who you ask, is that bubble ring doesn't mean anything.
Whatever.
Which, that's stupid. But a lot of LeBron haters like to say that. The Mickey Mouse ring. That's what they always say. The Disney ring. So Caruso, he was obviously playing into that. But, Lakers fans, they petty. They didn't like it very much. So he wore his Lakers ring around his neck today at the parade to, I think, kind of let everyone know, like, yo, y'all are stupid. See, look what Joe says. Double asterisk, just like that.
Whatever.
Double, not single, double. My man Joe K saying.
I don't even like the Lakers, but I'm not taking that from LeBron.
Nah.
He needs all the rings he can get. He's only got 4. He's probably not getting another one.
What does that mean? He needs
Jordan's got 6.
Huh?
Jordan's got 6.
Oh, see, that's the talk that's going on right now. That's what everybody's talking about. Because LeBron on him and Steve Nash's podcast, what LeBron say? Basically, it was like rings don't matter as much. I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, certain rings don't matter as much. The fans, they have too much fun with that, and people have spun it into a whole nother conversation. And a lot of people, LeBron.
I think the greatest thing you can say about LeBron was he went to 6 finals with 3 different teams. 6 straight.
Oh, 6 straight. That might be right, yeah. Something like that, yeah. I feel like it was 8. It might have been more than that.
Yeah, it might have been more. It might have been 7 or 8.
Yeah, because it was from Miami 2011 to 2018. So, yeah. But
that was insane.
No, that was a crazy run. And they were the underdog, like, in a lot of those series, especially against the Warriors. Like, they weren't the favorite very often.
8 straight, says CB, the greatest volunteer radio producer in the history of radio. LeBron, 8 straight. That's insane.
Yeah.
With 3 different teams. Just saying.
See, Joe K, this is hating at its finest, Joe K. I appreciate it. Joe K said, Phil said, which I'm guessing that's Phil Jackson, the 99 season that the Spurs won has an asterisk on it. That's why he's saying 2020. Got to double.
Okay.
I get
that. I need you to look into this.
Yes. Yeah. That's
I need Persay Hilton to look into this.
No, word on the street. That is true.
Luka's getting skinny.
Yeah, according to Dan Wokey of The Athletic. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Dan. I apologize. But he covers the Lakers with The Athletic, and he says that Luka's dropped a lot of weight and going on a strict diet, a lot of cardio with that. Looks visibly slimmer. Like you can tell. Watch out.
Watch out.
I don't mean nothing. That's what he always does. He goes to Europe. He eats cleaner because in Europe, they don't have all that processed food and crap like they do in America. Then he comes back to America and he starts eating like an American. We see it every year. Now, the difference is you don't got that good Tex-Mex and barbecue that he was dealing with in Dallas that you have in LA. Now, that food in LA goes crazy too, but it's a lot more healthy in LA than it is in Dallas.
A lot more avocado.
Yeah. They're a lot greener out there. A lot more health nuts. Well,
like Tom Brady ate avocado ice cream, which just sounds disgusting.
Probably not bad.
Well, let me know.
I mean, yeah, I probably won't be buying any anytime soon, but I got you.
All right, let's open up the gym. Patrick and Matt. What's up, fellas?
Going good, man. The Luka losing weight is like every single offseason. That's the story. Every single offseason is like he's in the best shape of his life. Watch out. And then he gets in and he starts playing the season. And it's really hard to play basketball at that level and travel and do all that stuff and keep a strict diet. I will say it's way easier to be overweight in Texas than it is in LA. Because like Luka at his biggest was still a pretty slim dude in Texas. And in LA, that dude is like, you could play the fat friend. That's the difference. When everybody's 85 pounds, you gotta lose some weight.
Yeah.
I mean, I always kind of noticed when he got a little thicker in the off season. I don't know about y'all, but you can kind of tell because in the summer he would start drinking on that beer, and he had his hot dog deal with whatever Slovenian hot dog company it was or whatever. So you could kind of see it start to build a little bit, and then by the start of the season, you were like, uh-oh. And then he'd eventually play himself into shape by March, and then, in the playoffs, he'd start to hit it. But, good for him. If he's going to stick with it and he's going to use Nico as fuel, I'm all about it. Make him regret it.
Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. We'll see.
It's always.
Who the Lakers getting tomorrow?
I don't know.
All
right.
They can still make trades. Everyone's making trades right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, see you
Have a
tomorrow.
good one. We will see y'all tomorrow. Maybe even have more NBA trades. A couple of those already gone down. One last night, one today. We'll see if any more go down as we go through the show. We got some college football talk, got some NFL talk, but welcome into Open Gym here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Myself, Patty Davis, alongside Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on SI. And yes, Rob, the draft does matter after the first three picks. Most MVPs and all these other guys, there's a ton that come after that. You just have to kind of watch where fits are and guys who have the possibility. And then you see which teams are going to ruin themselves because they're only taking guys that are like all potential, but you're like, their floor is, they shouldn't be in the NBA. Why are you taking them at 6? That's insane. So yeah, we'll see all that tomorrow. There's plenty of good players in this draft class that have potential to be important players going forward. And then the Wizards are doing some things right now, which I don't think is going to matter, but they're trying to do something.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Brunson is a top 10, 12 player in the NBA right now at least, and he was a second-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic.
So
is
there's
the best. Jokic with the second round pick.
Jokic is the best player in the world, and he's a second-round pick. So there's plenty of players that can come out of this thing that'll be difference makers, and don't be surprised if 5-10 years from now you look back on this draft and there's a guy somewhere in that late first, second round who's an all-star or potentially an all-NBA player.
Yeah, I mean, SGA was 11th overall.
Yeah.
So, and he just won the championship and the MVP. So, yeah, you can still find those guys. I think it's always just the draft is interesting because you're seeing who's swinging for the fences with just no regard for we either need somebody that's going to win MVP or they don't play for us in 4 years. So the two options, and we're going to go with one or the other, but we're not going to find anybody in the middle. And that's the Wizards always. That's what the Wizards always do. What up, CB? Appreciate you tuning in. Matt, you having a good Tuesday so far?
Yeah, pretty good. Just took the dog for a nice 2-mile walk before we hopped on here, and he came in here at 3:59 right when I sat down and threw up on the floor right next to me. So
nice, good move, dog. There, that's always nice.
We're busy during the break.
We are. Yeah, we're awaiting possibly storms here. It looks like it's about to storm here in Austin. My dog got the vet visit today. It was just a booster shot, so we were in and out, but trying to make him think the vet's not bad before he goes in for a little surgery next week. So trying to pretend that he's not going to hate me in a week. Like, what did you do to me? But a good day so far. Looking into it, it felt like it should have been Wednesday all day. Had to keep reminding myself it's only Tuesday. All day was kind of I don't know why it felt like it was a Wednesday. So I'm gonna be thrown off all week right now. So yeah, you're just getting started up there in Rob in North Austin. I'm in South Austin. So it's thundering right now and it is getting overcast. I can never tell if it's going to rain or anymore or not. And the radar The radar for me will say it'll show rain coming, and then it'll say 0% chance of rain. And then the clouds will get really dark and start thundering, and it'll say like 5% chance. And then it'll start raining, and it'll go 70% chance of rain. You're like, I think we're there, buddy. That's where we're at.
You know what
right now.
You know what I figured out about the weather app, by the way?
What's that?
And somebody in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I literally found this out last week. That percentage on the weather app, at least on iPhone,
yeah,
is not the percentage chance of rain.
Nope,
it's the percentage of the area
to get
that
rain,
is going to get rain.
Yeah,
which
no, I've only learned that within the last few years. But yes, I do know that. But it was a newer discovery.
Yeah, that blew my mind. I've been operating under the assumption that it's like, oh, well, it might rain, it might not, but it's, you learn new things every day, Patrick.
Yeah, I also don't know what the area that they're judging it on is either. That's also a thing. You can't tell. Shout out to Deshaun Elliott as well. Congrats to Deshaun Elliott signing a new 3-year deal with the Steelers today. So always good to see lifetime Longhorn there getting get another contract, another few years there in the NFL. I know he does have to play with Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers said today that he's this is probably it for him. And then once he's done, you won't see him anymore. He's going to disappear. Odds of that? You want to take that bet?
0% chance.
That one with, and then all his family being like, he's not married. He just said that.
That's wild.
It's such a weird. It's all very weird stuff happening right now for Aaron Rodgers. But look, if he wins some games, then that'll be really great. But I mean, I think he'll win. He'll be okay. Because everybody's okay when they play for Mike Tomlin. It's kind of what they do.
There's a 0% chance that after he retires and football season comes around again, that some team is not talking about, or there's not reports out there somewhere that somebody's going to try to pursue Aaron Rodgers, or he's going to still be on McAfee 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, he'll find a way to get into it and have some weird thing where he goes, well, I don't want to really be in the spotlight, but if you could have me on your TV twice a week, I think that's enough for me, but I don't want to be on the spotlight, I don't ever want to be criticized ever again. I just want to be able to say whatever I want all the time and have people tell me that I'm right. Is that how life works? Speaking of people just saying whatever they want with no real thought, and it is raining now here. I can see it raining out on the streets. Speaking of people saying whatever they want, Steve Spurrier, Matt, came out, and this Steve Spurrier is now entered into, I don't know which it is, but I have 2 options for what Steve Spurrier in his latest statement was. He is either 80 years old and has already lost his mind. He doesn't watch football anymore. He is no longer part of the football world. He is just an angry old man who sits around and wants to yell at the TV and yell at the clouds, but really doesn't have any ties to it. Maybe his brain's starting to go a little bit from CTE. I don't know. Or the other side, he is just a troll now and an asshole. That's the 2 options, because there's no other reason for a ex-football coach to say what he said.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both, right? Like, he's that old angry grandpa that's like kind of losing his mind and kind of an alcoholic and still says like some kind of, racist stuff, or in this particular instance, stupid stuff. I think it's probably a combination of both, but these comments are outrageous. Do you want me to read them, or do you want to go for it?
No, you want to go ahead? Yeah, you can go ahead and read them.
Yeah. So Steve Spurrier said on his podcast, I guess it was yesterday or maybe it was today, people picking Texas to win the SEC in football. They've got Arch Manning already winning the Heisman too, and my question is, if he's this good, how come they let Quinn Ewers play all the time last year?
He was a 7th round pick. He threw in the 7th round pick thing, by the way.
Yeah, I don't have the full quote.
No, I think that adds into it, because that tells me you don't watch football. That tells me you have no clue what's going on, because if you throw that in, that means you're Stephen A. Smith, which means I read a box score and then I give you my opinion on it. I have no clue what's happening. There's no context to anything I'm saying. I'm literally looking at a score and I go, well, Arch Manning wasn't on this sheet last year, and Quinn Ewers is a 7th round pick. So you tell me why people that watch the football games think what they think. Why you think scouts would think what they think. He also followed that up with, you'll have to ask Sark how come you played that one instead of this one. Hopefully he would say, because I thought he was the better one, better than that one. Isn't that what you would want to play this guy instead of the other? Unless it was a discipline issue and there was no discipline or anything. If it was one guy struggling, give the other guy a chance. So all of this stuff, which he knows full well is not how college football works. He knows 100% full well that you don't always play the freshman over the senior or the junior. You don't always play the unexperienced guy. Sometimes you want to give them a little time to learn. He knows full well that when you have promises to recruits, you try to keep them. And when you tell people certain things, you try to stick by your recruits, because in the long run of things, it helps you continue to recruit well when you're known to not be a liar and going back on your word. He knows full well that Quinn Ewers knew what that offense was and was better than a 7th round pick. He knows all of those things, or he doesn't. And there's no reason anybody should ever ask him to do a podcast ever again, because he doesn't watch football. So those are the two choices on that one. I get when a talking head says it, or when a player that doesn't really, but when a football coach comes out and goes, well, I only ever played the best player. Like, that's BS. It's 100% BS. There's definitely times you played somebody for another reason other than discipline. And if you didn't, that's also ridiculous. That you would just be like, oh, I told this guy he was going to come in and be the quarterback for us. And then we recruited another guy and I told him, kick rocks, buddy. I don't think that happened either.
Yeah, I mean, Quinn really struggled to Steve Spurrier's point. You know, he was third in school history in passing yards. He was third in school history in passing touchdowns. He had the third most passing yards in a single game in Texas history. He in a single season, he had the third most passing touchdowns in a single season, the third most passing yards, the fourth most passing yards, and the fifth most passing yards in back-to-back seasons in school history. Led a team to a conference title, back-to-back conference or back-to-back college football playoff appearances, semifinal appearances, mind you, and an SEC championship run, losing at the last second. He really, really struggled when he was in Austin, for sure. There was no way that Texas was going to succeed without him. You know, the only way that they were going to win a national title was with Arch Manning. That was very evident by the results from Quinn Ewers over the last 2 years. I mean, get the hell out of here, man.
Well, and then also in the thought of college football, well, this is not the NFL. This is not Cooper Rush starting for the Cowboys, and now we say, well, Cooper's going to lead us to. It's not this. It is. Well, you know, you have to get guys ready, and then you get them ready, and then they go play, and they become really good players. And looking around the league of who's here, who we think might be it, I'm guessing Spurrier might think that Florida's going to do well, and maybe he thinks somewhere over in there. Maybe he thinks that, you know, DJ Lagaway's the guy. By the way, DJ Lagaway didn't start till an injury. It wasn't like he played his way into the role last year. The reason he wasn't playing was because the other player got to go in front of him. None of this is that complicated. That's how it works.
And then he mentions the discipline. Like, what's the discipline issue?
I think that's just him saying the only reason I wouldn't have played Arch. I think reality, he wanted to take a shot at Arch and he wanted to take a shot at Sark. He wanted to take a shot at both of them because he just doesn't like Texas, or because he's an old SEC guy who thinks that he's better than, you know, the new SEC people. I don't know what it is. There's clearly some reason to go out of here and try and be a jerk about it because it's just such a bad take. Because if you want to say, actually, I have these 3 or 4 guys ahead of Arch, and I think that these teams might be a reason why Texas doesn't get back to where the playoffs, or these teams might be slightly ahead of Texas in the race. But just go, well, you know, they played Quinn instead of Arch. So Arch is what, an 8th round pick? That's not college football logic.
It's honestly not too dissimilar from the Aaron Murray take that we trashed a little while back. If you remember, it was pretty much the same line of thought. So maybe he even ripped off that line of thought because he didn't have one of his own. I mean, there's no universe, and I said this when Aaron Murray had his take. There is no universe when you've had a returning starting quarterback who has come close to setting school records, and if Quinn doesn't get hurt and you extrapolate his averages over those games that he missed, he might have the best passing seasons in Texas Longhorns history behind, maybe you could go back and forth with Colt McCoy, but there has never been a universe in which there has been an established starter who is a Heisman Trophy candidate before the start of a season and who has led your team to a conference title and had all these passing records and got you to the playoff, that just to get benched for a true freshman the next year because he's a 5-star recruit. That's never happened in the history of college football. And if it has, chat, maybe you can show me. I don't know when it is.
Well, redshirt freshman, though. It's redshirt freshman last year.
Either way. Red shirt, whatever.
Oh, I know. But it's all these concepts of, we were talking about it. You're like, well, look at what Quinn did against Michigan and where we thought we were going to be at. And then the 7th round pick thing that gets me is because the only reason you're saying this is to take a shot at Sark. Because and you could ask anybody, if Arch Manning would have come out in this year's draft, if he was able to come out in this year's draft, he would have been the number 1 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's playing 3 games. He would have been the number 1 overall.
Well established. Everybody was projecting that.
So if he could have come out this year, he would have been the number 1 overall pick above Cam Ward because people think his ceiling is higher than Cam Ward's ceiling. So we can look at that and go, well, he put a 7th round, but you're like, I get that. That's not how any of this works, though. And that. And that's why it's only frustrating is I get, Aaron Murray saying it because he's a quarterback. He didn't have to make these decisions. And I do think Joe's right. Spurrier would have put him in a rotation because Spurrier couldn't make a decision in which platoon guys.
Naman, he got benched in a game because he wasn't playing well. That's different than starting him at the start of a season and just completely erasing him from being on. Like that's a totally different situation.
No, I get, and the fact that they were like Quinn was struggling. Quinn wasn't really struggling most of the season. He struggled against Georgia and got benched for Arch Manning. In the game, he got benched for him, and Arch didn't do any better. And so they put Quinn back in the second half, and things looked much better in the second half. But that was basically the only real time that Quinn really, really struggled. Other than that, they played good teams that played him back well. Like, I don't know if there was another time where you thought, man, Quinn Ewers is really, really struggling out there. I know that he wasn't, be all, do all, but that wasn't really the offense they were running. I think you could say maybe there was points where the running game wasn't as effective as it needed to be. They couldn't run up the middle. The turnovers were too much on the running game. I think there was points where he wasn't being great and he wasn't able to spread the ball out as much as they'd like him to do. But to go really struggling where you were losing games because of it, that didn't happen.
It never happened. And if you really look at Quinn's year last season, if you want to pick apart what Quinn did last year, I've got a couple notes here, but I'll bring Brooks Austin on and he could talk for an hour about why he thinks Quinn Ewers is not as good as everybody thinks he was. But if you look at Quinn's season last year, when did he start to quote unquote struggle? It was in the Georgia game and after the Georgia game when Georgia went to a 50 front and it changed the way that Texas had to play their offense and their pressures and all those things, and it got pressure on Quinn. It made him get the ball out quicker, and that's why he was throwing a bunch of dink and dunk stuff and he wasn't really pushing the ball down the field as much. He struggled with his downfield throws, with his accuracy there. He had a lot of balls that he passed up that he probably should have thrown, and it was after the Georgia game that those struggles start to become apparent because defenses were playing them better because Georgia showed them the blueprint to play them. And yet, he still overcame that and got Texas to an SEC championship, won every game after the Georgia game until the Ohio State game. That is indicative of a player who, despite having the odds stacked against him and teams, quote-unquote, figuring him out, still progressed, adjusted, led his team, got them in positions to win. They do not win in the college football playoff against Arizona State without Quinn Ewers. They probably don't beat Texas A&M without Quinn Ewers. They probably don't beat Vanderbilt without Quinn Ewers. There is a whole lot of different instances that you can point at that says, okay, Quinn Ewers is the reason we won this football game. If Arch Manning is in on that 4th and 13 against Arizona State, do you think that he recognizes that he needs to adjust to protection, bring Gunnar Helton in, and hit the pass over the top to Matthew Golden? I don't. I think Arch Manning is a super smart quarterback, and I think he's going to learn those things. But as a redshirt player that had never really started a meaningful game in his career, he probably doesn't make that call. Quinn Ewers does. That's why Quinn Ewers was the starter down the stretch.
Yeah. No, I'm
That's it.
with you. And I'll flip on this on the other side too, where we talk about it. And I kept telling you, Arch isn't magic. I'm the leader of the Arch is not magic fan club. I think Arch Manning is going to be really great. I think any Heisman odds at the beginning of the season, you're like, okay, there's 10 guys who could win it. It depends which teams are really good and which players excel on those teams that are really good and who comes out of it. You know, right now, Arch is leading in betting because his name is the biggest name. And that's how Vegas works. Vegas is going to say Arch Manning plays on a really good team. We think he's going to be a good player, and more people are willing to put money down on him than anything else. So we can stack the odds in one way that we're not, if everybody bets on this and we pay that out, it's going to kill us if he actually wins it. So we have to make the odds a little bit better for him than Garrett Nussmeier for Cade Klubnik, because those guys maybe have a more front-running edge because they're going to get used a ton more than Arch Manning is. But we'll get destroyed betting-wise if Arch Manning actually does win it and we give real odds for him because the amount of people who will bet on Arch Manning to win the Heisman. So that's how Vegas works. I mean, I don't want to blow anybody's mind with that. I don't think I am. So saying, well, I don't know why he's the front runner. Go, because he's the most famous name in college football this season because of his uncles. Not even anything he's done. His uncles make him the most famous name in college football this year. And he's playing for a team that's gone to back-to-back college football playoffs. So that's why.
Yeah.
And Naman, I get, look, Naman Roberts, I get you don't like Quinn Ewers. You're not going to win that argument with me and Matt. I get it. You didn't like him. You want to be great every year. Get ready. You're going to hate Arch Manning later this season. Just telling you. It's the way football is. You play good teams. Sometimes it goes. Just saying, you will hate, but you'll be on here next season going like, Arch Manning, I don't know why we're not playing Trey Owens. If you're always looking for the next best thing, I get it. There was times Quinn Ewers wasn't, elite quarterback. He wasn't. He was really good at what he did. He took us to two conference championships in a row, won one of them. He took us to 2 playoffs in a row, won 2 playoff games. I'm going to stick with him. I think he did really well. I get Arch is going to be there. He's not magic, but he's going to be really good for Texas.
Yeah, and Naman, to your point, Quinn Ewers threw 12 interceptions last year. By my count, I believe 5 or 6 of those interceptions were either tip balls or balls that bounced off the receiver's hands and into a defender's hands that were not his fault. Both of the interceptions against Vanderbilt were of that variety. You can try and pick apart Quinn Ewers any which way you want. The bottom line is he was the reason that Texas was in position to go to the national championship game against Ohio State. You can pick apart the call from Sark at the goal line all you want. You can pick apart, him, passing up throws here and there. But the fact of the matter is he did everything in his power to get Texas to that point, and they got to that point because of him. He threw for 350 yards against the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship. Why did they not win that game? Because Bert Auburn missed a field goal and because they couldn't run the football. Why were they in a position to potentially lose to Arizona State? Because they missed 2 Bert Auburn field goals.
Yeah, no, it is. I get it. I know why there is the dislike of Quinn Ewers because I watched it and he is not a vocal enough person to come out and make it, feel really confident with him out there. I get all of those things he just didn't. It felt like he was given the role and he never earned it, which isn't true. There's just a lot of those things that the narrative of it turned into he's a bad quarterback, and it's just not true. And so that's why it annoys me when head coaches say those types of things, when guys who know better about the game go out and try and attack people because for whatever reason, whatever narrative he wanted to put out there, and just say Quinn Ewers was a 7th round pick. Like that's, I mean, we could be like, well, Steve Spurrier, you're obviously an awful coach because of your record in the NFL. Like you're a god-awful football coach, right? Well, no, but anyone who could go to the NFL and be bad at football is bad at football. I'm going to ignore all this other stuff. I'm only going to point out one thing about you. And that's what Steve Spurrier is doing. And that's why it's annoying.
Yeah. And look, I yes, I am. Yeah. Everybody, look, when you get 10 years down the line and the recency bias for all of this stuff has passed, and you just look back at what Quinn Ewers did, he is going to be remembered as a top 3, top 4 quarterback in Texas Longhorns football history. There is no doubt in my mind. Could Arch surpass him? Absolutely. That would knock him down to 4th, because right now Quinn Ewers is the third best quarterback in Texas football history. Statistically, record-wise, accomplishment-wise, all of that stuff. He is only behind Vince Young and Colt McCoy. That's it.
I think that's debatable, but I also think that that's not far off. And so when I say that, I mean, I don't think there's any way you could be like, he's a 10th. I think you could go in, and if you go, I have to go back and look at actual history of Texas football and quarterbacks. And I know I
wrote a story about this, and I went through the past 15 Texas quarterbacks.
No, and I'm saying if you go back to like the 60s and because they didn't throw the ball as much because it was a much more of a running game, it's hard to compare stats wise and those types of things, what leadership there is. And then there's running stats for quarterbacks. So it's a more difficult thing to compare because they're just completely different eras. But I do agree with you that Quinn Ewers has done all these really great things for Texas football, and he gets no love for it because there's just people there's people for the last 2 years who believe Texas should have won a national championship. And the only reason they weren't was because of Quinn Ewers. And that to me that's I'm the center of the world thinking that the rest of the world doesn't exist, that Ohio State and Michigan, those teams didn't exist. And these other really good football programs, we're the best. And so we're the main character of this story. So we're supposed to win it every year. And that's not how life works. And so I think that thinking of, no, we just messed it up because we're supposed to win every year. And we didn't because of Quinn. The theory that we're supposed to win every year is the problem. We're not. We may win every year. We may have a really good chance to win every year, but that's the center of the world thinking that some people have in sports. It's my team. Lakers fans are really, really bad about it. The Lakers fans, we don't win a championship. We were supposed to. The league's supposed to hand it to us, the trophy every year. And so I think Texas fans, the hype gets up a lot higher, and then they believe the hype a little too much. Believe me, Ohio State right now has the exact same amount of hype as Texas does. They just won a national championship. They think they're about to do it again. And, we can go to Alabama, still has hype. Georgia has that hype every year. These big programs all have the same thing, that they're supposed to win it, and it's hard every year. No, Hudson Card would not have done the same thing as Quinn. No, I'm telling you flat out, no. No.
Yes. And I really liked Hudson Card. I thought he was a perfectly serviceable quarterback. And he did a very good job when Quinn got hurt against Alabama in 23. Or I guess that was 22. Yeah, that was 22. And look, that's great. And then what did Hudson Card do when he left?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything because he was just a guy. He was a guy that played wide receiver in high school, played a year of quarterback in high school or 2 years of quarterback in high school, and then came to Texas as kind of a dual threat. He was never an NFL quarterback. That's a terrible comparison.
I get it. We're going to get off of here in a minute because we do this too often, but we'll get off of here in a minute. I get, you can throw me every stat in the world. I've watched football and covered football for long enough in my life to not sit there and go, oh no, we could put anybody in there and they'd win. It's wildly untrue. It's a very judgmental way of looking at Quinn Ewers, and everything he does wrong is a fault, and everything he does right he's supposed to do. And it's just a bad way to watch a game, to think, well, he threw 5 touchdowns. He's supposed to throw 5 touchdowns. Why didn't he throw 6? And then, he throws a pick and you go, I can't believe it. And I'm telling you, Arch is going to throw picks next year. Arch is going to throw way more picks than Quinn Ewers did, most likely, just because he's coming in and hasn't seen it. And that was Quinn's 3rd year. You get better at it as you go on. And this will be his first year seeing a lot of different things thrown at him. And I think Arch has even more confidence than Quinn does. So I think he's going to throw some picks this season. I don't think he's going to throw, a huge amount, but I'd say it wouldn't surprise me if he got close to 20. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Just because I think he's going to have some games that turn out poorly for him.
I've got I've got 2 more things here. Number 1, quarterbacks are always the first to get the credit and the first to get the blame when something goes wrong.
Yes.
So if you look at the Georgia game, for example, in the SEC championship, Quinn had a hell of a game, but they lost. So he's the one who is at fault in everybody's minds. We should have played Arch. He threw for 350 yards.
Yeah.
Against Ohio State. Let's just forget that Ohio State had arguably the best defense in the country, and almost everybody on that defense went to the NFL, and they won a national championship. But no. It's Quinn's fault. We didn't lose to the national champions. It's all Quinn's fault. And my other thing is, I think Patrick and I think mostly everybody in this conversation is in agreement that we think that Arch is going to be better than Quinn.
Yeah.
But last year, he wasn't. And that's why he didn't play. He's still a developing player. And this is kind of what drives me crazy about like NFL draft and NBA draft stuff, when you kind of paint somebody as this is what they are right now. As if there is no development in sports.
Yes.
Steve Sarkisian has a plan for Arch Manning, and it was to let him sit for a couple years and to develop him into a starting quarterback. He has finally reached that point. And will Arch come out this year and maybe have one of the best seasons in Texas football history? It's certainly possible. But he wouldn't have done it last year because he wasn't ready. Arch admitted that he wasn't ready. And that's just the facts. That's how quarterback play works. You have to develop and get better. There is never a guy who just comes in and is all world everything all the time. And if it does happen, it's a Heisman type guy. It's an NFL Rookie of the Year type guy. It's a Caleb Williams at Oklahoma. It's a Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. That
it's
rarely happens.
Like, it's one of the reasons why I'm not huge on recruiting is because I do enjoy like the process of it through college. And when you get too far into the recruiting, sometimes it's really hard to separate those 2 years where you go, well, this guy's coming in, and when they told me he was coming in, they told me he was going to make a huge impact on this team and all of these things. Like Justice Terry. Justice Terry isn't dominant next year. Doesn't mean he won't be. It just means, okay, he's playing against offensive linemen who you've been doing it for 3 or 4 years and know every trick in the book, and he just doesn't know those yet. And he doesn't get a call on some holds because he's a true freshman. And all of those things, like all of that stuff in there, it doesn't mean they won't be, but like it's hard because now everybody's going to look at that. And when somebody, when a defensive lineman misses a tackle and a guy breaks through and runs, they're going to be like, well, Justice Terry should have been in there, and Justice Terry didn't. And then in a year or two, when Justice Terry is really the guy taking over and being everything, and now he might be next year, who the hell knows? But when you have those guys then step up and take over those roles, people have already moved on. And we saw it like. We were laughing at me when I was doing another show. Me and Rod were laughing about Jonte Cook because we were like, Jonte Cook, all I heard for an entire offseason was Jonte Cook's about to be the greatest player to ever play at Texas. This is the biggest thing we ever got. And then one season, he didn't do anything. And everyone was like, who? Jonte Cook? Nah, we got the wide receivers coming in. Ryan Wingo's coming in. Ryan Wingo. Forget Jonte Cook. You're like, wait, in one season? It's gone. So I think there's points of it where it just gets kind of lost in translation that people expect, like the expectations are so high and then not met immediately, then everything falls apart. And now he's a failure because we were told he's a 5-star talent, and they don't think of Vince Young getting pulled of games. No one remembers Vince Young, not Vince Young, but that was a part of it. Like if you talk about Vince Young's whole career, there was a part where he was not able to be a starting quarterback. And then he became the best quarterback in Texas football history, one of the best in college football history. And his first season playing for the Longhorns, he got benched multiple times because he wasn't getting it done, because he was making too many big mistakes, and he wasn't, putting his heart and soul out into it. And you just saw that turn. So I think there's part of that where Vince could have sat for another year and it would have been fine. And to get a little bit more, I think Vince as a person did not want to do that, and they understood that, so they played him. And they didn't have a Quinn Ewers ahead of him. There wasn't a guy who, like, if Vince came in after Colt McCoy, not the other way around, you would have seen Colt McCoy still be the quarterback, even with Vince Young behind him. You would go, Vince, you're going to be great, but you have to, like, we put
this
you out
guy's
there.
Great for us now.
Yes. And so I think that there's some of that in there, and that's why it's like, yeah. But getting back to it all at the end of the day, it makes me upset when they go, the old head ball coach, and you're like, I don't know. because that right there is a Stephen A. Smith argument. That is a on paper, I'm going to pick one part of this argument and leave everything else out. And that, if you're in a court of law and you do what he does, they will send you to jail if you're a cop and you leave things out and you go, oh, we found DNA, but we didn't point to the person. So we just didn't show you that DNA. They can arrest you for that because it's bad faith to do these things. And so in sports, when people know the answer and say the other thing, it drives me nuts, especially the head ball coach, because he's not doing that for the good of the game. He's not doing it for the good of the players. He's doing it to make a statement because he's 80 years old and apparently yelling at clouds and lonely. And that sucks for him. But shut up.
Yeah. It's indicative of a guy who, in my opinion, has never watched another football game other than Florida Gators in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like that. And man, if you're watching Florida, that was not a lot of fun last 2 years. That was a lot of injuries. That was a lot of pain, and maybe Billy Napier being on the hot seat. So that was difficult. Now, on the flip of that, Matt, there was other news that came out that is shaping the future. No, so not the past of college football, but the future of college football, with Wisconsin suing Miami for tampering. And this is our first real big lawsuit into tampering. And what ends up happening with it will be a huge indicator of what happens next in college football, as along the lines of tampering, transfer portal, those types of things. And so they had to basically find a way to do this because everyone knows tampering is happening. Everybody knows that players are going around and people are trying to go around and get somebody else from here, and that there's breaking the technical rules of college football, but you can't necessarily sue somebody over something against college football, because they broke a rule in the game. You have to figure out a way that they actually hurt you. This is all starting over Xavier Lewis, which they don't name in the lawsuit because it is Xavier Lewis. The cornerback, it's a 5-star guy that they really thought they had. They had a NIL deal that he was signing, and Miami basically said, we'll pay you more than that NIL deal is going to pay you. And so they got him to transfers. That's what they're saying, at least. And they called him before he was in the portal, before anything else. And they are now claiming that they basically coerced him to break a deal, break a contract, to go with them to sign a contract. And in all of this, that cost them money in what they would have been able to make after paying him, that they're losing money in revenue because of something malicious that Miami did to them. We don't know yet. This may get thrown out. This may go to court and be settled. This may be taken to court and then Wisconsin loses. All that, there's a lot of things on the table for what could happen in this lawsuit, but it is the beginning of, if Wisconsin wins this lawsuit, it goes to court and they can prove that Miami reached in and they have phone calls or witnesses or whatever else that can collaborate and put together a argument that Miami went out to get a player and it will hurt Wisconsin and will help us. If they can do that, it changes things.
Yeah, absolutely. This has the potential to cause a seismic shift in the NIL landscape and in college football for a long time. And I really, really hope that Wisconsin wins this lawsuit, and I hope that it sets a precedent going forward to get rid of all of this tampering and all of this. I don't really know any other way to describe it other than foul play in college football, because it has become the wild, wild west in a sense that you could just. I mean, Sark has hinted at this plenty of times in the past where he was talking about other programs before the college football playoff tampering with his roster and trying to get players to leave to come to their program. Yeah. And you just can't have that stuff in college football. So I really, really hope that Wisconsin wins this. I hope that it sets a new precedent and that it kind of puts the shackles on a lot of these teams who are going under the table and stealing players from other schools. I don't think Texas does that. I don't think that a lot of these big programs do that, but I do think that there are some big programs that do that too. So, anything to level the playing field and stop the cheating in college football, I'm all about. So
I think that schools like Texas and others maybe do things that are not technically by the book. I think They may have something where a coach asks, at a recruiting visit or a recruiting talk, I've got this player who's playing at a school right now, but they're looking for a better opportunity. Is there a better opportunity here or something? So not necessarily calling somebody up and being like, leave your school, but maybe having a little bit of like, no, if they're in the portal, we'll talk to them. If they're in the portal, this is what this guy makes, or something to that effect. I'm sure happens a bit everywhere, because you to try and be completely by the book at this point, you're shooting yourself in the foot. To just go,
sure.
we're only gonna call people when their name's in the portal, because sometimes you're calling people's name in the portal and they're like, dude, I'm already signed. I'm only doing this as a technicality. This business was done before I went in the portal. So I don't know why you're calling me now. You should have called me 2 weeks ago when my agent was putting feelers out. You should have answered that phone call. So I think that stuff happens, and you have to kind of play with that. I mean, we see it in pro sports too. We saw Kirk Cousins and the Falcons get fined because he signed 20 seconds into the tampering period, legal tampering period. And it was like, oh, really? Y'all figured it out that fast? I think those things happen still, but you have to figure out where the line is in it. And when the line is, this guy's signing a deal with us, he wants to play here. We have all reason to believe he's ready to come play for us. And then he's not entering the transfer portal. He's not even talking to us about entering the transfer portal. And then he's gone, enters a portal, immediately ends up in Miami, has a deal. All those things are all checked off in, record time. Then we know a phone call happened, and we don't know if he called you or what. But yeah, and they can get around it in the NCAA rules, because they basically are able to go, well, somebody, a wife of a player, or, a booster over here makes a phone call to a coach, a high school coach, who then goes and talks to the family, and the family talks to the kid. And it's so many degrees of separation that there's no real way you can do anything. But if you're going in and going, the offer's 2.5 over there and it's 1.5 here, so you'd be stupid not to take it. That's a tampering. And I think Wisconsin is basically saying, we had a deal for a lot of money and he was signing it. And I don't know if they could say he already signed it and walked away, and that's part of the broken contract, or he was going to sign it. But it's a really interesting case.
Well, I think the only way that you can prove that it's a broken contract is if you actually sign the deal, right? This isn't like I don't think this was a handshake agreement. I think this was probably
no, it doesn't seem like it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is probably something that was already signed and ready to go, and then Miami swooped in and said, "Nah, we'll give you this," and then he he could be under breach of contract at that point.
So here we go in the paper. It says, in this report, it says the Badgers and their collective VC Connect believe Miami coaches tampered with then Wisconsin player Lucas in December, causing him to break the contract he'd signed with the VC Connect and future contracts he would have signed with Wisconsin to enroll at Miami and play for the Hurricanes. So it is contract he signed, and we could have given him more in the future. So we're going to throw this into the wording of it. So it's not just saying it was 1 year. So he had signed for the next year, and then they thought they were going to sign him for another year as well. But that he had signed for the next year and then walked and transferred to Miami. And that's why they're going after it. Now, if this even goes through, most likely it is just a financial settlement that Miami would have to pay the team. This wouldn't necessarily even put NCAA sanctions or the new college football playoff, the new college, whatever sports committee thing. I don't know if there'd be sanctions through that either. The bigger issue would be, do college programs then start to try and regulate their schools even more and go, guys, we can't afford it. This is we're already trying to figure out the money, and we're putting 20 million here and 20 million here, and the audits cost us $7 million. Like, that's a large chunk of change for getting somebody recruiting, because now that guy cost us still the $3 million we're paying him and $7 million more. And now who knows how many times we're going to get sued.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that may see the schools kind of crack down a little bit more. That's the hope with the lawsuit, is, self-regulation a little bit more, which, again, the billionaires don't care about, but the millionaires do.
Yeah. And look, there's a big difference, I think, in what Miami is accused of doing, at least. And that is that is, in my opinion, breaking the rules.
Yes.
Flat out breaking the rules. There's another way to do things that I think most schools probably go about it this way, is finding the loopholes in the rules and using them to your advantage. This does not seem like that case to me for Miami. This seems like he signed a contract, we broke the rules, tampered with him, and recruited him to us, and now he's signed with us. So it seems like kind of an open and shut case to me, in my opinion, as long as Wisconsin can prove all of the different things going down the line. But you're probably right. It probably won't, result in any kind of sanctions from the NCAA or the college football sports committee or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
I wish that it would, but it seems like a thing that's just going to cause schools to react differently and, like you said, self-regulate and hopefully put a stop to a lot of this stuff going forward.
Now, and I'll tell you on the flip of that, if this does just get thrown out, which is a pretty decent likelihood that a judge just says, this is between y'all, don't loop us into this. There's no real way, there's no real evidence to prove that they tampered. You just have, you have witnesses, but you don't have physical tape of them calling and saying things. And you don't have these, if they don't have that stuff, this will get thrown out. And then that sets a precedent the other way, which is tamper away. The NCAA ain't going to stop you. The government ain't going to stop you. There's no reason not to tamper now. The rules are all made up. Do whatever you want. And I think if it gets thrown out, you could see it get worse of certain teams just fully on board, just calling up other players and being like, hey, this is a new offer. It's free agency every year now. Every year we're going to call for free agents and see if there's some guys out there we'd like to add. I think that's a possibility if it goes the other way. Not every school would do that because some schools don't have to as much. Normally it's more rebuilding schools that have somebody that's a donor that really wants to put their name back into it. And, so at Texas Tech, maybe at this point could be that school, but that would be a little bit scary the other way.
Yeah, it would be. Let's just hope that doesn't happen.
I
mean, you mentioned Texas Tech. Micah Hudson, former 5-star recruit, wide receiver, entered the transfer portal, went to A&M, then just all of a sudden decided to go back to Texas Tech. That's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
I wonder why he did that. I guess he was homesick. That must have been it, right?
He was homesick. No, I mean, well, we see that. I mean, we know Texas Tech went on softball, and no one cares enough about softball. No offense, but like the powers that be don't care enough to really crack down and go, hey, Texas Tech spent all this money. I think most people in softball are like, this kind of sucks, but also we're happy these girls are getting paid. Yeah. Like, we want to raise the value of what softball's worth. And so if they're going to raise the value, then maybe we can raise it, and maybe that'll make TV realize that we're more valuable, and maybe we can lift the whole sport, I think is more the thought right now than let's go punish them. Let's go punish Texas Tech. But that's the reason I bring them up, is because we know that it happened at Tech. Like, we know it did. It's not really hidden in softball that they went across and were like, anybody wants to get paid, we're going to come reach out to you and we want to pay. And so I think that, you look at some football players and that, yes, that could really happen. But you're hoping that if that starts to come out, then we will see this new college sports committee really try and go after them and find ways to be like, because there's also going to be the whole deal with the NIL Go. And that's part of it. If they see these deals and they're like, hey, these are also above market value, which they said they're going to turn down, which is going to be the new lawsuit, by the way, that we're going to see in the next 6 months or whenever NIL Go starts, and they turn down somebody's deal and that player's like, cool, you're sued. Like, you're immediately, this is not free market anymore. You can't tell me I can't make this money. So that'll be a lawsuit that's happening in the next 6 months. But right now, this is an interesting one. So I'll be watching to see how it ends up, because it is it could be really, really big if Wisconsin wins it and trying to shut down all tampering, and would really change the transfer portal, which I know a lot of people want there to be more regulation on that. And hopefully somewhere down the line, they'll actually figure it out more than trying to move the portal dates, but actually figure out a way to make it a little bit more tenable of a system. But this is kind of a first part to it. Wisconsin trying to step in and say, this is BS. And we'll see what the end result ends up being. But I'm excited to see how it turns out, because it could be big, or it could just be, once again, college sports just getting more and more deregulated because no one wants to touch it.
Yeah, I mean that's my fear, but let's just collectively hope on Open Gym that this goes Wisconsin's way and it doesn't go the other way and create a whole new series of worries and and issues within the game that we really don't need at this point, because it needs to be regulated more than deregulated at this point.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we take a quick break? We're going to come back. I want to get into the NBA trades and see if there may be some other things that could happen, some rumors, but 2 trades did happen between last show and this show. So we'll mention those real quick, get through those, talk about some players that this could be the year they get described as a bust in the NFL. Some players that maybe are coming up to that edge of make it or break it. You are either a good or bad draft pick. That coming up this year. We get into that. And Bleacher Report put out a ranking of all the new head coaches in football of how likely it is to work out. Number one, it's a little surprising to me, maybe a little, but we'll get into that one there with some more NFL talk as well. Anything you guys want to bring up as well, the text line is open. Code text line 512-222-9328, as well as the chat there on Facebook, Twitch, X, and YouTube. And if you're over on YouTube and you're enjoying the show, make sure to give it a like and a subscribe as well. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, get into all of that here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Dan Covert with my wife, Hayden. Welcome to Covert BK.
Our newest location in the gorgeous Hill Country includes Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and hundreds of pre-owned and certified vehicles for you to choose from. We have 3 service departments that are ready to take care of your car, truck, or SUV with 86 service bays to accommodate any repair and get you in and out quickly. Come visit us today to select the vehicle you've been dreaming about.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations.
I got this, Dad. This is Camilla McKay, and my dad can help with any TV or stereo needs you have around your house. Just call him, and he will come to you with advice and a great price. And the guys that work for him are awesome. They can install anything, anywhere. So, like my dad says, just relax and smile. We handle all the work.
So just give us a call at 255-8678 or on the web at avconsultations.com.
Say hello to Jason and the gang over at Relax the Back. They embrace a holistic approach for a healthier lifestyle based on 35 years, folks, of proven expertise, and my back couldn't be happier. Their motto is live wellness, and folks, they can transform your routine, your daily routine, into something very, very special if you have back pain. If you're struggling with thoracic problems, if you got hip problems, if you got lumbar problems, please go over to one of their stores. They got 2 great locations, and find out a chair or a recliner or a sofa that's going to fit you and going to make your life a whole lot better. I've got this office chair right here that I've been sitting in for years, and I love it. 2 locations, folks, at the Hill Country Gallery across from Whole Foods, and in North Austin at the Gateway Shopping Center across from the Container Store. Live pain-free like the buck and Relax the Back.
SendTexTickets.com. If you're in the market for tickets to any sporting event, any concert, any Broadway show, anything live coming to town, you got to head over to SendTexTickets.com. The best seats to all of the biggest events, not just here in Austin, but all over the state and all over the country as well. It's so easy to use. Just log on your phone or computer to SendTexTickets.com. All of their tickets are 100% guaranteed, and they will be delivered right to your phone or computer. So simple to use, and you're also helping to support a local business every time you shop. SendTexTickets.com. So if you want to be at the biggest events in sports and entertainment, there's only one place to go. It's SendTexTickets.com.
Back here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered here, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. Myself, Patrick Davis, alongside Matt Galatzan of Texas Longhorns on SI. How's the floor looking?
Got it cleaned up in the nick of time, so we're good. We're good.
Very good. Getting into hour 2 here on the show. Sooner Cowboys. I'm not fully sold on the Florida team having a complete turnaround. And being really, really good. I get it's a tough game. We'll see what this Texas team is and what this Florida team are before we get there. But I'm not necessarily putting as much onto that one yet. because, well, I think they're good in a lot of things. I think Texas will have ways to attack a DJ Lagaway that maybe he wasn't attacked in some of the games he had last year. It is funny to me because DJ Lagaway kind of gets away with only playing in a few games. And I get he played more games than Arch did. But, he didn't necessarily play all of the, he wasn't playing Georgia and Alabama and lighting those guys up. And yet they're acting like, well, he played a lot of really good players. You're like, Arch didn't play anybody either. I get it, but he gets a lot more credit for it.
Yeah, maybe next week we'll have on my buddy Zach Goodall to talk some Florida, so we can have some little DJ Lagway, Arch Manning debates and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like a lot of people who are counting out Texas next year are only focused on Arch Manning, and they kind of forget that Texas is going to have the best pass rush in college football. PFF has them ranked as the number one linebacker core and the number one secondary in the country. They're going to have a really good defense. So we'll see how Lagway handles that. And we'll go from there. But I do think it's going to be a tough game. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not.
Oh no, I think it'll be tough. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it'll be tough, but I'm not quite sure if it's as bad as what it is overall. Yeah, it was 6 for 13 versus A&M, 9 for 17 versus Tennessee, 2 for 6 against Georgia. 14 and 22 against Florida State. They were really bad last year. 10 to 17. LSU and Ole Miss he did well at, but LSU and Ole Miss are not necessarily, and those were not I just don't know what game that he was necessarily super prolific in. That because he played in a lot of games, but he didn't play a ton. He killed Samford with 456 yards. He beat up on Kentucky with 259, but he had no touchdowns and an interception on that game. LSU had 226 and a touchdown. Ole Miss, he had 180 and 2 touchdowns and an interception. Florida State, 133, 2 touchdowns and an interception. And then Tulane, he had 305 and a touchdown and 2 interceptions. I don't know if any of those lines are blowing me away.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, he played in let's see, he played in most of their games. I believe he at least saw snaps in almost every single one of their games. And he threw for 1,915 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Arch Manning really, if you take out just the games where he only ran the football, which is pretty easy. He had 4 games that he played in that he didn't attempt to pass. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games where he threw a pass. 2 games in which he started and 3 games which he played, the vast majority of it. He threw for 939 yards and 9 touchdowns in ostensibly 3 games.
Yeah.
So
no, and that's and again, I'm talking back point. I think DJ Lagway is going to be better next year. I think he will improve and be one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. So I'm not saying he won't, but pretending that he had such an amazing season that he's got he's got such a leg up on some of these other guys, and he's got a leg up on Arch and others. That I don't buy. I think he's just going to be better next season. But I don't think he had any great games against good teams either. I think he's the same way. I think his best games were Samford and Tulane.
Yeah. The bottom line is he's getting the benefit of the doubt of this guy played some last year, and we think he's going to be really good next year. But we're not allowed to give that to Arch, apparently, if you're Steve Spurrier or Aaron Murray.
No, I just don't. Yeah, I don't get it. But that's again think DJ Lagway will be good too. I'm not taking shots at DJ Lagway. I think he will improve within a year and getting healthy. I think he'll be much better. But I think that Arch will too. And I think Garrett Nussmeier will have 5 trillion yards next season. I just don't see them winning enough games. I just don't. I think Brian Kelly's going to screw that up. And so I think Garrett Nussmeier will have every stat in the world. And if they win games, he'll probably win the Heisman because it's going to just be him throwing the football nonstop, I think. But if they don't win, that doesn't matter. And so when you take him out, Cade Klubnik, if Clemson can just dominate all season long, Cade Klubnik probably has a better shot than Arch does. But, But I get why but he's also like number 2 in a lot of the like him, Garrett Nussmeier and Kate Klubnik are all right by each other. It's just, again, that's how Vegas works. Is if Vegas says that Arch is where he's actually probably at, which would be 3rd or 4th in the Heisman rankings, betting wise, and he wins, they lose their ass. So they're going to make his odds a little bit better. So that less people take it, and the people who do, which is still going to be a ton of people, they don't have to pay them out if he does actually win it. I think they're gambling less on Arch. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I think Nussmeier's up there. Kate Klubnik's up there for sure of Heisman hopefuls before a season starts. Let's talk a little NBA as we see 2 more trades went down over the last 24 hours since we've been on the air. We saw last night the Celtics get into the action. The Celtics now, we still don't know fully what the Celtics are going to do. We know they're over the second apron. We know that Jason Tatum is hurt. We know that they have new ownership. They have won a title recently. Where are they headed? Are they willing to pay all of the repercussions of not only the luxury tax, but then not being able to do sign and trades, not being able to make trades that you'd like to have, not being able to trade draft picks the same way, losing more and more things to try and level the playing field? Are they willing to do that with still a pretty young team where you still have a young Jason Tatum, you have a decently young Jaylen Brown, a young Derek White, young Peyton Pritchard, all good players that are on this team right now, and you can continue to build around and try and make another run in 2 or 3 years if you play your cards right, and you'll still be competitive in the East, and who knows? We just saw Indy go make a run this year, and no one thought they would. So you're still in the hunt for things, but they take one of their older players in Drew Holiday and basically ship him off. Now, they got a really good deal on this because I think Portland is just trying to get out of some cap trouble. Or basically, they're trying to open up where they're going to be able to make some moves. And so they trade off Anthony Simons, who has, I believe, 2 more years after next year on his contract, but he is a little bit cheaper. Sorry. Anthony Simons does not have Anthony Simons has 1 year left on his deal, and he's $5 million cheaper. Sorry, backwards. Anthony Simons has 1 year left on his deal. So the Celtics get a guy who is now an expiring contract if they want to get rid of the contract altogether in 2026, 2027. And and he's also a young shooting guard that maybe could be the player that maybe will work with them, especially if they were to move at Jaylen Brown. There would be a much bigger spot for him on this team. But he may also get moved again. But it's more, I believe, about the expiring contract that knocks off some of their salary, which knocks off $25 million of their salary. They move a $30 million player in Drew Holiday, who has 3 full years left on his contract, that they're paying more money and don't really want to pay for anymore. He had some injuries last year. He slowed down, wasn't the elite defender that he was for the years past. For Portland to get that, it feels like they were just trying to get out of the Anthony Simons business, and they wanted to keep some cap space or wanted to keep some cap on their books so that maybe they can make another trade down the line. And it's weird in today's NBA, like you have to stay over the cap, but under the luxury tax, and over, under the first apron, but over the cap. It's a weird, all of it's just weird how it's set up, but that's where they're at. And so it feels like I don't think they're going to try and keep Drew Holiday long-term, but maybe for a couple more seasons. I don't know if they were ever going to reach a deal with Simons either. So they ship him off to Boston, and they had to give up like 2 seconds to do it as well, but Boston gets rid of their contract, and that's kind of what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a good deal for Boston. I think it's a good deal for what Portland's trying to do, because they're not trying to win now. They're trying to collect as much as they can, and then have a chance to make a trade later down the line, free up cap space later down the line when they do think that they're ready to make a run at, building their roster to compete. So I think it's a good deal on both sides. I thought Drew Holiday, and especially in the playoffs last year, was not exactly the biggest plus for the Celtics. So, anything you can do to kind of shake up the roster and maybe keep your pieces that you like there and get yourself below that apron and get yourself some more cap space, I'm all about. So I think it's a good deal for both sides.
Yeah, and so it leads you to believe now in Boston, what are they going to do next? We heard the rumor that the Spurs and Celtics at least had conversations about Kristaps Porzingis. I doubt that would happen because basically that is a trade for the Spurs where they're like, we'll give you a sell for him. Like we'll match salaries enough. That's about it. Not giving you picks, not giving you anything else. But we can get you a guy, we can get you somebody else in there other than Porzingis. But we're not giving up stuff for him. we don't need him that bad. Like, so I think they were kind of calling him as like, if you're trying to get rid of him, we can try and do something. But I'm not just giving you, we're not trying to get him. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of where the Spurs have been sitting. And so their names are in a lot of these rumors because teams are calling them and they're talking to them, but they're much more in the how they got De'Aaron Fox. These guys want to come here and they, you want to give us the deal where, we win it. Awesome. But we're not giving you all of our young talent to get this one guy. That's silly. We're not in that business. So that's a non-starter. If you just want to ditch a guy because you don't like him on your roster anymore and you want to put somebody else on there, maybe somebody who feels more tradable or anything like that, we can talk. We can have that conversation. I don't mind flipping a guard or a small forward to get somebody for some size. I don't mind flipping that. But I'm also not trying to get rid of star players or, even role players that I really want for a guy that we think still has potential. He's, still, I think 29 years old as of right now. So there's still some hope that he could be something. We know that everybody believes it was long COVID really kept him out of the NBA finals. I don't see anything happening. It feels like that was more of a back and forth. And I think the Spurs would basically be Vassell, but Vassell has 4 years left on his deal. So I don't think that the Celtics wanted 4 years left on his deal, Vassell. I think they'd rather get out of it because they're just trying to shed that salary. They're at like 225 right now for next season. The second apron is, I have it pulled up here somewhere. If I can find it. I think it's around 205.
Is that 225 number including the Drew Holiday deal?
No, it may be down to 220. I have to look again at what it is.
Okay.
But it's still around that.
If you're the Spurs, I think the only reason you consider this deal is that Porzingis is going to be he is an expiring contract after, like, he's going to be a free agent after next season. So that clears $30 million of your own cap space if you have him for a year and then you let him walk or whatever the case may be. Outside of that, like, I don't see any reason why they would want to do something like this. Even when Porzingis is healthy, he's pretty good, but then it's only a matter of time before he gets a, tendonitis in his knee or, something else goes wrong. And like, he's just an often injured guy. So if you're the Spurs, I think you're absolutely right. You're just sitting there saying, we'll match the salary. We'll give you a guy that's got 4 years left on his deal for an expiring contract. And then we'll just walk away. And he can help us next year when he does play.
But you also have to remember this about the expiring thing. And this is a weird way the CBA is set up. And it's a weird way you have to look at all these trades right now. Nobody has cap space. Nobody. People have room. People definitely have room under the first apron. But nobody really has cap space. And it's basically the way the CBA was set up we can make it to where people can make money and you can have teams. But we're trying to kill the majority of free agency. We want to get rid of how bad free agency is. And we're not a fan of where free agency leads. So we're trying to get all that set up. And in the process of doing that, that means that we need to basically, the salary cap is at $154 million for next year, allegedly, or proposed. The luxury tax at 187. You can get up to 185. You can't sign any free agents. You have to sign and trade and do everything else, but you're not paying a luxury tax if you're a smaller market. The problem is if you're at 185, you're not paying a luxury tax, but you can't sign anybody. So if I go at 185 and I lose a $30 million player, well, I just can't make that up again. And so it makes it hard to trade for somebody and a sign and trade. It makes it harder to make a move. If you want to stick around, the 170 to 180 is where you're kind of trying to hang. And I think that's kind of Drew Holiday for Portland.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I'm not as well versed in the new salary cap and CBA rules as you are, but at the end of the day, I think that what we can both agree on here is that the Spurs, you don't want to give something massive up for this guy, and the idea that Kristaps Porzingis is worth even more than Devin Vassell or Harrison Barnes or whatever they decide to ship off for him, it's kind of asinine because he's just not that player anymore.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. Is that, yeah, he's not, and I don't think anybody's offering that. I think that's the deal. Is I think Boston is more, and maybe that was the Spurs talks too. Was, well, we'll take Porzingis and then we'll renegotiate a deal where we're not paying him $30 million, or we'll talk to Porzingis if he's willing to go down to 20, we'll pay him. And Kim, but he's not a $30 million player anymore because he can't stay on the damn court. He's not a superstar anymore. He was a bench player for you. So we'll talk to him if he wants to lower his salary and give us a good deal going forward. And if the Celtics say, well, we're good, you're taking him, but we got to find another way to ditch it off. And you go, okay, we'll find a third team we'll ship Vassell to. We'll make all the salaries work. And you get an expiring, we get an expiring, and you get an expiring, and they get an expiring. And we can get out of these contracts. It's just a weird place because, yeah, and then some of these teams will want to take on salaries because, again, we talked about Portland. They're trying to stay in the game, but, stay in that area where we're not going to dip so far because if we go past the salary cap, we're at 154. We got to dip all these salaries to get down to 120 so we can afford to give someone $30 million or 40. We had jumped in at 110. And that's, most of your team at that point, getting rid of everybody to go make a move for a top level player. So it's an interesting, different place where everybody's at. But yeah, your 154 is your salary cap. 187 is the luxury tax. Then at 195 is when you hit that first apron. That's when there starts to be some different rules for you. You can't aggregate salaries anymore. There's no mid-level exception is gone. So you don't get that mid-level exception to sign somebody. And then the second apron, that's where you start losing access to taxpayer. You lose even more at the second apron. And that second apron is 207.8. So once these guys are like 220, you're like, let's get back down to 200. We can deal with the first apron. That second apron's what sucks. And so I think that, for the Celtics, they're going to try and move Porzingis. If they can't do that, that's when they have to start talking about Jaylen Brown. They're apparently taking phone calls for Jaylen Brown and Derek White. They don't want to. They'd rather move Porzingis. But if he's just at this point untouchable, then it's going to be hard to get somebody to take him on. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. And then we look over at the other trade that goes down, and it is the Pelicans making their first move since Joe Dumars has taken over. And they're sending CJ McCollum and Kelly Olynyk to the Wizards for a package that includes Jordan Poole. It's also some picks in there as well. That is, they get, I believe they're also getting Sadiq Bey and the number 40 pick in the draft are both happening over there. But for the Wizards, CJ McCollum, expiring contract. The Wizards look like what they're doing is trying to get down to, let's just have rookie contracts and then open up to maybe sign somebody big over here when nobody else has any money. We'll be the only market bidding on them. Is the only people bidding is us and nobody else. And so it'll be interesting to see if they could pull that off. I'm not sure they would be able to because it's Washington and I don't know who really wants to be there, but that's possibly what they're looking at. And for the Pelicans, it's just, we got to get younger. We got to try some different things. I don't like Jordan Poole going there. It doesn't make me believe very much. I think, Jordan Poole feels kind of like Kyle Kuzma at this point, that maybe it's just the love of the game is gone. So I don't know if he's going to be able to come in and really be anything special in New Orleans. I don't know if it's going to work out, but it's an interesting trade because it feels like Washington trying to basically get out of all their contracts before next season.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an interesting way to go about it in the new CBA for sure. I mean, Washington just needs to start everything over from scratch anyway, so you might as well try and make some moves to make that happen. You hope that they can eventually figure it out and get some good young players in there and start to turn things around. And maybe this is the start of them doing that. I'm like you. I don't have any faith in them doing anything ever at this point until there's a complete, organizational change. But hey, you never know, man. Maybe this is just the start of the next stage of Washington Wizards basketball. And 5 years from now, we're going to look back and they're going to win an NBA title because of this trade. You never know, Patrick.
No, I don't. I'll tell you this though. I would not be surprised that by tomorrow, by our show on Thursday, I'll put it this way, by our show on Thursday. So draft happens. So either before the draft or through the draft, that we see another relatively big trade happen. Like CJ McCollum's a big gore trade because CJ McCollum was a all-star at one point. But I think we'll see something where it could be the Lakers trying to make a move by the draft. And now that they feel they're going to have more money coming in and don't mind getting up past that first apron as much and getting into those games, maybe they try and make a move. It could be the Pelicans shipping off more players. It could be the Celtics shipping off more players. But I think somebody else will make a big move by then because everyone's trying to navigate this new apron and then watching two small market teams without big salaries go make it to the finals. It really, I think some of the ownership is like, what are we doing? Why do I have 5 guys making $40 million? These guys had nobody and they're dominating. So we'll see. The draft is tomorrow night and we'll see probably some more action before we get into it. And I'm all here for it. I'm all here for it.
What time does the draft start tomorrow night? Is it around?
I would assume like 6, 7.
6, 7. Well, then tomorrow I'm sure we'll talk about Trey Johnson a little bit, but why don't you give me an early prediction on where you think he lands?
I mean, it's going to be somewhere in the top 6. I mean, it's not anywhere fun. It could be Washington. It could be Utah. It's nowhere fun. That's why it's kind of depressing. You're like, no, it's nowhere good. He's someone that's hope maybe someone trades up for one of those picks and go up and get him. But right now, I don't think he falls to New Orleans where that would be a place that he could end up. I don't think he falls to Brooklyn. I think he's just up in those top kind of picks. Draft starts at 7 tomorrow. So we'll get into we'll get into it a little bit more of looking at some of the top picks so you have an idea of what to watch if you're going to turn that on. But yeah, I mean, I can pull up the order real quick. Before we get going, before we move on to some NFL talk. He's not going 1 or 2. I technically could go to Philadelphia, but I don't know if that's really what fits them. And then it's Charlotte, Utah, and Washington. That you don't really want to end up in any one of those 3 places. So that's probably where he ends up.
Where do the Rockets pick?
They don't. They're traded their number 10 pick to Phoenix as part of the Kevin Durant trade.
That's right. Well, I was kind of hoping that somebody like that would trade up for him, but it sounds like that's probably not a possibility.
No, I mean, you could see Portland now needs a shooting guard. They just traded Anthony Simons. They're at 11. The Raptors at 9. Brooklyn at 8, but I still think maybe Ace Bailey's in that spot. We could see somewhere move around there. There's going to be a lot of teams trying to trade up. The question is, is the value worth it at a point, or can you get someone who feels about the same?
Yeah. I know that I'm sure people don't want to hear this considering they just won the title, but I've heard rumblings that Oklahoma City is going to try and make a move and move up in this draft to get somebody. So
yeah, there's rumors of that too.
That would be unfortunate.
Well, but I mean, the question is, are they trading future draft picks or are they trading away one of their pieces?
Yeah, that's true.
If they trade away one of their pieces, then it's a crapshoot. It could work. It could not. I mean, Sam Presti's been pretty good, so I feel like he would know and make the right pick. But could they be trying to shed salary or shed somebody they're going to have to pay in a couple of years? They just don't want to keep that guy around. And Joe, it would not surprise me at all if they trade De'Aaron Fox. I don't think it'll be the next 2 days. I think a De'Aaron Fox trade would be closer to the trade deadline or maybe later in the offseason, but I think they would. I don't know if they would do it before they had Dylan Harper in there. You know what I mean? I think if you have Dylan Harper there and then somebody needs a point guard down the stretch and maybe your talk between of what the salary is going to be and you feel really, really good about Dylan Harper and Steph Castle, maybe you make that trade then. But I don't necessarily think they would do it right away because you don't know what you have in Dylan Harper, and you think it's going to be really good, and you don't know what you have. You don't know. I think you also don't want to go to Wimby and be like, we're going to keep pushing your timeline back. I don't think he likes that. So you have to have the Wimby in the conversation as well of we don't want to push your timeline back. However, this is probably what's best for you of trying to build something really that can last long term is instead of having guys that are already making $40 million as you're trying to get there, let's try and have guys younger than you that will be paid after you. And then we can really get to where we want to be, I think is more the way to really try and put something together long term. But today's NBA is not set up for dynasties. So it'll go. But that's my opinion on that. We'll get into it more tomorrow because there is the NBA draft happening that night. So we'll give you a little bit more look into where some of these guys are going, some of the players, some of the teams, some of the rumors of who's looking to trade up. Lots of guys. Philly's trying to do something, man. And it's Daryl Morey. So he's pulled off big moves before. They don't always move, they don't always work, but he pulls off big moves. But he's definitely like, he's sick to his stomach that he got half of what he wanted, which was to not lose that pick because I think it was like 5th or something. They lose the pick. So they got it in the top 5. So that means he keeps the pick, but then it's number 3. So he missed out on Dylan Harper and he missed out on Cooper Flagg. And he's like, I don't really want any of these guys. These guys don't help me win right away. And I've got a guy who only plays 12 games a year at center. So we really got to get somebody good coming in for Tyrese Maxey. Going to be there. No, Wimby is already back. He was at Fanatics Fest. So he is back in the USA and starting to work out back here and get ready here in America.
Yeah. I mean, is what's James Harden's contract? Is he still with Philly?
No, James Harden's with LA Clippers.
That's right. I don't know why I thought he was still with Philly, but like Philly has to do something. I mean, they Daryl Morey doesn't just like to sit and twiddle his thumbs, No. So I agree. I think that there's definitely a possibility that they do something here pretty quick.
They had the number 3 pick. It just doesn't hold nearly as much value as the number 2 pick. And so they're just right behind it. And the Spurs are pissed because I know Dylan Harper's great, but what if we had one pick before? We could have had Cooper Flagg, and he fits perfectly into what we want. And then we have De'Aaron Fox and Cooper Flagg. Oh, it all works. And then we'll go out and try and get a center somewhere. We'll be good to go. And now there's rumors that Bam Adebayo may be available at a point that the Heat, because they didn't get Kevin Durant, that there was Vegas odds on where Bam Adebayo plays next season, or if he gets traded, where he goes. And the Lakers are the lead in that one. You're like, how the Lakers going to get Bam Adebayo, but the Spurs like 3rd in that one. There's a lot going on. I enjoy this time of year, as you can tell. It's fun for me to watch all this stuff. Yeah, don't forget Paul George there in Philadelphia too. Paul George.
Yes. I would not be surprised if they tried to move off of playoff P.
You don't want Paul George with a $56 million player option in the 27-28 season?
I would try to move off that ASAP.
Joel Embiid with a $67 million player option in the 28-29 season?
That's bad, man. I mean, look, when Embiid's healthy, he's one of the best players in the NBA. The problem is he's never healthy.
No, and when I have money, I'm rich. It don't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, in 27-28 right now, over $100 million, like $110, $108 million, $111, $18 million is part of Embiid and George in 3 more seasons.
That's rough.
That's
really rough.
I don't know who you're adding to make that seem like it's better than what it is, but that is not where you want to be, not where you're set up. You're like, these guys can't play now. 3 more years? We expected them to play? I wanted to get into this with you, Matt. I saw an article about players that could be hitting a bust mark in the NFL. CBS Sports put out this article of 9 NFL players who are running out of time to prove themselves and could be called busts. And I want to get your predictions on if you think there will be there, and if you have any others you want to throw in, players who might be a bust this season, if they will or will not. The first one I think is very much on this, just Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence stats are not really great. He's had some years where he looked a lot better. He's had some years where the Jaguars were winning more games, and if you're winning, that's kind of the biggest metric in it all. But his numbers have never really been superior to everybody else's. He's never gotten into that echelon of being a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, where now it feels like he should have been in there. He's been paid now. He has been in a lot of places, and now he's got yet another coach to try and get him there, Liam Cohen, who is coming over. He had really good success with Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. You add in some more of these pieces in Jacksonville with Travis. Travis. We'll just
Travis Hunter.
Travis Hunter. There we go. And Brian Thomas Jr. You feel like you're almost there. Do you think that Trevor Lawrence will officially get over it and we'll have a really good season and everyone's on board now? And like Trevor Lawrence, okay, it was good to pay him. He is the quarterback of the Jaguars. Or this is where it busts and everyone's like, oh, you guys got to start looking for your next guy.
I think he's going to have a really good year, and I do not think he's going to bust. And I say that because Baker Mayfield was the number one pick in the NFL draft. He had a rough go of it in his first few years in the NFL. He was a late season signing for the LA Rams at one point. They just took a shot at him. And he played well in those couple games, and then goes to Tampa Bay on a cheap prove-it deal. And then Liam Cohen last year completely resurrected his career with a very similar style of offense, in my opinion, with, great outside receivers. But listen, Trevor Lawrence, his receivers are younger, yes, but he's got two really explosive running backs. I think they did a lot to help him in a variety of ways. So I think that he is going to bounce back, and I think he's going to have a good year under Liam Cohen. I just think that he's set up perfectly to succeed. And if he doesn't, I'll eat my words, but I really do think that he's going to have a nice year there, and that they're going to be happy that they paid him that money.
I'm kind of like, as a Texans fan, I should be rooting for his failure. I do think that he's going to be okay. I don't think he's going to enter as being a bust. He's the number one overall pick, so it's hard if you're not great to be like not a bust. I don't think he's ever going to live up to that hype. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And to never get into that realm, that kind of falls of somewhat of a bust because of where he was drafted. But I do think he'll be a serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL. But the difference is Dak Prescott was a later round pick. He can be Dak Prescott. Now, they shouldn't have paid him as much, but that was Jerry Jones' fault for not paying him early. So I think there's there. So he still is kind of, I think he's going to be still somewhat of a bust. I just don't think he's going to have a season where everyone goes, he finally put it together, and this guy is a top 10, top 5 quarterback. I just don't see him jumping over guys. Like, I don't see him getting better than a lot of these other players at this point in his career. Maybe he will. So I think there's going to be a certain point of it where he is just going to start to get closer to that label of being a bust. But that also doesn't mean that he is you have to find a new quarterback guy either. So it's not a full-on, this guy's a failure. It's just he's not, I don't think he's going to live up to the hype. And I think that people it's going to start to sink in that he's not going to live up to the hype of that. Speaking of which, another player who is kind of in that realm looked really bad when it first started. They traded everything to go get him, got him over CJ Stroud, Bryce Young in Carolina. Everything was looking like it was going to be lost. They bring in their new coach a year ago. He starts to turn things around. And by the end of the season, Bryce Young starts to look like maybe there's some hope. Now there's an off season. Can he come back? And it was the last season that it just kind of was magical and everything, or does it fall apart now that people knew the new Bryce Young and they know the offense a little bit better? There's some more game film of him actually playing decently. Is Bryce Young going to get into the boom or bust, or is it over for him now that maybe Carolina starts to move on? We know they're quick to move on.
For me, I think it's a boom again. Do I think he's going to have as much success as Trevor Lawrence does next year? I'm not sure about that, but I think that as long as he takes what he did at the end of last season and he brings that forward into this season and makes some progression, then you can still make the argument that he has a chance to reach that upper echelon. I think he's talented enough to do it. He just had his second year in the NFL, and he was on the worst team in the NFL his rookie season. They finally put a couple of pieces around him last year, and he starts to progress and starts to put things together. Now they have a lot more pieces around there, and I do think that he has a chance to live up to the hype, probably more so than Trevor Lawrence does, because he hasn't been there as long, and he's got more room to grow. So I really do think that he has a chance to be really successful next year. Will he ever be at the level of CJ Stroud? I'm not sure about that. But I do think that, 3-4 years from now, you could probably look at who the top 5-10 quarterbacks in the NFL are, and his name's going to be up there.
No, all right. I like that Bryce Young. I think with Dave Canales, there's much more hope for him to figure it out. If they give him some weapons and they continue to grow it, I think he can grow within that system and be somebody that does surprise some people and do some really big things. So I will go with you. I do not think he busts out this season at all. I think that he will have somebody that is able to make some steps forward. Another quarterback in that draft class, Anthony Richardson.
Bust.
Has been missing time with injuries. Daniel Jones is coming in to be the quarterback competition. He is, did not have the best couple first year. He's had 13 starts. They are erratic. They are all over the place. We know he has arm talent, but does he have the mind to get it done? Does he have the patience and work ethic to get there? Will he mature enough in time to be able to figure things out in Indianapolis? I won't say, because look, there's all reality too, that maybe in 2 or 3 years he figures it out and is mature enough. He's still extremely young. But if we say in Indianapolis this season, it's a bust, right? It's a bust.
Yeah, it's a bust. I don't think that they want him to be the long-term answer at this point. And that's why they brought in Daniel Jones. I think that they want to say on the face of it, like, yeah, we're bringing in a competition to try to get the best out of Anthony Richardson. I think that they're just trying to push him out. And that by mid-season, Daniel Jones is a starter and Anthony Richardson's looking for a new home in 26. I just don't see any path to it happening. He's had enough time there to start to show if he's going to progress and become a legitimate NFL starter and be worth a top 10 draft pick, and he hasn't done it, and I don't think that there's a path to him doing it.
No, I think they're trying to make themselves not look like idiots in the process, because we do know, Jim Irsay unfortunately passed away. His daughters are now taking over. One of his daughters had the whole thing about why she wears a headset, which I did not know was a piece. I know Nick Caserio did it, but she was like, I think all the owners should wear headsets so you can know what's going on in the games and you can be aware of, if someone's making the right decision or not. And you're like, oh no. I get your thought process on that, but I don't know if you know enough about the game to be able to, and maybe you do, but it's very unlikely, because it's really, really, I wouldn't be able to put on a headset and go, okay, good call on that. I don't know if I could do that in the moment of a game. I think after the game, I could be able to do some things and look at plays and look at all that. But in the moment of the game, I don't know if I could do that.
I don't think that when Shane Steichen or whoever is calling in the plays to the offense in Indianapolis is making his play call and he's saying zip right 20, 34 flip, Buccaneer, Donald Trump on 1. She's going to have any idea what he just called until the play actually happens. And I think that you could say that for probably 28 of the 32 owners in the NFL. And that's not a shot at her or her, in any way, shape, or form. Football is very complicated. And unless you've been in it calling plays and, getting play calls for a long period of time, it's very hard to understand. And that's why, I don't sit here and break down Steve Sarkisian film and play calls and all that kind of stuff, because he knows more about football, or he's forgotten more about football than I'm ever going to know in my entire life. And I'm fine with admitting that. If all 32 owners started getting headsets in the NFL, Jerry Jones having a headset would be an absolute nightmare.
Oh, I love it. Please, come on, Jerry, get it done. No, but this is also, it's like, it's that thought process of like, do you how micromanaging do you want to be before you think that it's going to be a bad effect on your staff, that you come back in and go, oh, I was listening to every word you said. You're like, yeah, don't do that. It's not how you breed a positive working environment, is overseeing where you don't know as much as them. That's why you hired them. Like, you could be really smart at one thing and not smart at another. There's plenty of people who know how to fix a lot of things that I can't fix. And I may know more about sports than they do. That doesn't mean either one of us is dumb. It just means we know something more about that. And so I'm curious. So that is the question, is I think that there's a point where there may be some micromanaging from the new Colts ownership. And if that's the case, then the Anthony Richardson thing, to get back to the point, is everyone trying to not look like an idiot because they know, well, that's my job. Why would you do that? You're fired. Or we're going to bring somebody else in because you're not doing the job. You told me this guy was going to be great and he wasn't. So we'll bring somebody else in, and not thinking of the big picture. So I think that maybe somewhat is happening in Indy. And I think you're right on it, which is, let's try and look smart by bringing in Daniel Jones for a cheap contract, and then go, no, the competition, they were both good, but Daniel Jones is the way we got to go. So let's trade Anthony Richardson and get some back for him, because this is the smart way to do business. Trying to trick it into making your mistake looks like something good. Next one, Travis Etienne over there back in Jacksonville, 25th pick overall in 2021. This is another one that he's been okay at times. He's been up and down. The Jaguars offense as a whole clearly was down, which is why there's two guys on this list. He has not been able to take over as the lead running back, which a first-round pick, you're expected to be a star running back in the NFL. He hasn't necessarily been that guy. Does he become the guy in Jacksonville this year and look like their future going forward at running back, at least for the next few years?
I think he has a really good chance to, because I think that the other weapons that they've added in that offense are going to help kind of open things up for him a little bit more. In the past couple years, they just really haven't had the weapons on the outside to open things up for their running game. Now they do. And I know that he's not who's the other running back there? Tank Bigsby?
Tank Bigsby,
yeah. He's more of the power in between the tackles guy. Etienne's more of a outside runner, receiving back, whatever. I think that once they open things up and they can kind of integrate him into other parts of their offense, he's going to become a lot more effective now. And I do think he has a really good chance of being an impact player for them. I mean, I would not hesitate, based on the other moves that they made and the offensive coordinator that they brought in, to pick him in fantasy football, for example. I think he's going to put up a lot of numbers, and I'm pretty confident about that. So I think he'll be. I don't think he's going to bust at all.
Okay. I think that this is another one where they may try and start moving Tank Bigsby a little bit more. I think they can work together. This falls into the same thing as Trevor Lawrence. I don't think it's a terrible pick. It may have just been a little bit high, and you may have, there may have been something else that was a little bit better for you, but I think he'll be fine. I don't think he'll be labeled as like, what a bust of a guy, because it wasn't a top 10, top 15 pick. It was just a first round pick. I still think he'll be able to be in there. All he's got to do is score some more touchdowns. That's the key, is like make some of those big explosive plays, get on the highlight reel. And if the whole offense is better, he'll be able to look better within that. Tank Bigsby's still going to be a big piece of it, though. Your next guy, Treylon Burks over there in Tennessee, number 18 overall pick in 2022. This was all part of their deal that they were going to trade A.J. Johnson and then
A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown, sorry. A.J. Brown. I knew it was wrong when I said it. A.J. Brown and Treylon Burks was going to come in, and they were similar type player. He was going to be just like him, but then be just as good. They haven't had quarterback there. They haven't really had a great offense there in the last few years. Now that's supposed to change. Cam Ward is coming in. Everyone's excited about Cam Ward and what they're going to be able to do in Tennessee. Treylon Burks is now more on the hot seat, though, because he's got to show up and look like a first-round pick talent with the new quarterback. Is he going to be able to step up and build a relationship with Cam Ward, or are they going to be already looking for who the actual number one is going to be?
This is a really hard one for me, because I think it's all dependent on how Cam Ward plays.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they've put enough around Cam Ward in terms of offensive line. I mean, with that Dan Moore signing, that was just awful. They don't really have a legitimate running game. Tony Pollard is okay. They don't really have anybody to take the pressure off of him in the other receiver spots. If Gunnar Helm can come in and really take the tight end job by the horns, and no pun intended, and kind of open things up in the middle of the field, maybe that helps a little bit. But I just don't think that offense is set up to succeed quite yet. So it's going to be really hard for him to avoid that bust label, and it's not going to be all his fault. And a lot of times this boom or bust conversation is not always the player's fault. It's the situation they're in, and I think that that's the case with Treylon Burks.
All right, yeah, I'm with you on that. I just don't think he's ever going to be a number one. He never, like when he got drafted, it felt like he was not going to be a number one in the NFL. And maybe in the right situation he could be, but it just never has really felt like he's taken on that. Maybe with Cam Ward, he figures it out and falls into that role. I don't know if he was, because he was always a guy that he wasn't quite athletic enough to do, and he wasn't quite big enough to ever be the guy. And I think it's going to be hard for him to make up that lost ground of intimidation in the wide receiver game. But possibly if they're able to scheme him open a little bit more, he could fall into that world where now he's, running like a Brandon Ayuk or somebody like that, and they feel a little bit better about him. So I think he will. I think it'll end up that he won't be on the Titans in 2 more years. I think they'll move off of him and make a trade and try and bring somebody else in. But I still think that he could be playing for the next, 10 years or so and have a decent NFL career. It just won't necessarily be as a number one wide receiver.
Yeah, and I had a little bit of oversight there. I totally forgot they brought in Calvin Ridley. So,
yeah,
but even in that situation, I think that Calvin Ridley's probably your number one. Right. And then they have Tyler Lockett as well. So maybe things will open up a little bit for him. But at the end of the day, I think both of those guys, veteran established receivers are going to be much more of a primary target for a young quarterback like Cam Ward, as opposed to sort of an unproven, inconsistent wide receiver.
Yeah. Going over to the Giants and their offensive tackle, Evan Neal, who's drafted number 7th overall in 2022. The Giants offensive line has been garbage. He was supposed to have tons and tons of promise. He has only played 27 starts in his first 3 seasons, but he also hasn't really been great in those times when he's played. He's been a guard now, some too, and a tackle. They don't even know if he's going to start this year. Evan Neal, does that pick come back and look like a bad one going forward?
Yeah, I just don't think the Giants have done a very good job of drafting offensive linemen over the last few years. And I think this is just another case of that. Like, the fact that you're going into another year and you're still not guaranteed a starting job is kind of indicative of how they feel about you and how you've been playing over the last couple seasons. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, Patrick. I have not watched every single snap that Evan Neal has played since he got to the Giants.
What, man? All right, the show's over.
But it kind of feels like, at least from my perspective, that he's sort of on his way out there, and they're going to have to make a move to make some different things happen on the offensive line. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't see a path to him being a legitimate lockdown tackle for them.
No, I'm with you on that one. With another tackle here for you, the Saints and Trevor Penning, number 19th overall pick in 2022. He was supposed to be the left tackle of the future when he gets drafted to the Saints in 2022. They have the Saints this season just drafted the left tackle of the future in Kelvin Banks. That is now the left tackle of the future, and Trevor Penning most likely moving inside to make room for Kelvin Banks. I know you could talk to everybody else, and Kelvin Banks is only 5'4", so he's probably going to play interior offensive line. I'm sure he's way too small.
He's got T-Rex arms and
that was Will Campbell, right? That was Will Campbell, right?
Yeah.
Those are the...
yeah.
But Trevor Penning is now moving inside. This is on a bad Saints team, but can he be part of the Saints offensive line growing now, moving inside and working with the Kelvin Banks, or is he going to kind of take this as a slight and maybe head down the path of nothing good happening?
I think it'd be very good. I think it'd be very good for him to move inside. I think that he's much better suited for a guard position anyway. So I don't think he's going to bust. I think that bringing in Kelvin Banks to put, as the tackle and moving Penning inside will do very well for the Saints. So I think he's going to be fine. There are a lot of guys who get drafted as tackles who end up being better suited for playing inside. I mean, let's I'm not saying he's going to be this, so please do not clip this and make this go viral. But Zach Martin was a tackle in college. He moved inside and became an everything guard. Tyler Smith, another Cowboy, was a tackle in college. They brought him in originally to be a tackle, and then they decided that he was better suited for the inside, and he's a very, very good left guard. So I think the same could be said for Penning. I think they probably just waited a little bit too long to do it, but he'll be fine once he gets in there, and he'll be a good player.
All right. Matt Galatzan said Trevor Penning is going to be better than Zach Martin. Aggregate that. We will get into. No, I'm with you. I think that this is a good spot for him to move into. I will give you Kellen Moore. I don't know if he necessarily had much to do with the offensive line on the Eagles, but I bet he learned some things about how that offensive line works on the Eagles and can take that information and help out this offensive line and maybe get it to play a little bit better. And yeah, you get Kelvin Banks in there. You have somebody who played on what was just has been a really consistent offensive line in Philadelphia last year, was coaching there. I think that maybe he can put in some tricks and some of the trade and maybe help them start to build something as they're going to try and start to build from the lines out, because that's how far away the Saints are right now, is a kind of full rebuild. And so if you start building with the lines, I think he can still be part of that for sure. Mm-hmm. All right. How about another 2023 player coming out? Tyree Wilson, drafted number 7 overall. He is there in Vegas. They keep Max Crosby there on the defensive end. So Tyree Wilson's supposed to be really the other side of the coin. He hasn't really been able to do it, but now Pete Carroll's there. Things could they change for Tyree Wilson, or was he somewhat always overrated and now it's feeling like it's coming up not good?
I think he'll be fine. I don't know that he's ever going to live up to, what was he picked, number 7 overall? 7, yeah. Yeah, I don't know that he's ever going to live up to that hype, and part of that is because he's going to be overshadowed on the other side by Max Crosby, who's one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. But I do think that bringing Pete Carroll in, a guy who's known for his defensive line and those kinds, and just defense overall, is a very good move for him, and I think that he'll emerge as a very good player for them. So I don't think he's going to bust. I just don't think he's going to necessarily live up to the top 10. The fix for. Who did they bring in before that? Clellan Ferrell, I think. I don't know that he's ever going to live up to that, but I think he is going to be a good player for them.
Yep. No, I'm kind of with you on that. He's only got 8 sacks in those first 2 seasons. It feels like he needs to keep picking that up. But Tyree Wilson was also supposed to be a project. Like, he was supposed to be a project coming out. So you expect there to be there's supposed to be a better culture and coaching staff in there now. That could help him out. I'm with you that I'll give him another chance to see if he can do it. One more name for you, and then we'll see if we have any extra names we want to throw on. Lucas Van Ness, drafted 13th overall. That was a guy who's coming to Green Bay, going to make the difference. He hasn't started yet. He's drafted in 2023. Doesn't have an official start yet. He's just part of the edge rotation. They may move him some more inside to get him some more snaps. But, man, he has never really impressed the coaches enough and this team enough to ever take that next step and be the guy, and that's a first-round pick for you.
Yeah, I just don't know that there's a fit for him on that defense at this point. So it's kind of hard to see him all of a sudden emerging as some dominant edge rusher in what they do. I'm going to say he's going to bust. I think he's a good player, and I think that maybe a different system somewhere else would be a better fit for him. I just don't think that he has a path to really being a frontline starter for them going forward, especially the moves they've made recently. So
yep, I'm with you too. It just doesn't, like, if you can't start in your first 2 years, it does not bode well as it goes forward, that things are going to change for you. And we know Baron Sorrell is going to go up there and take his job from him.
Yeah, for sure.
First day.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a first-round pick, NFL first-round picks are drafted to be starters.
Yes.
Period. So if you can't make your way onto the field in the first 2 years, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that one. Do you have anybody else in the NFL that is on your bust watch that you think maybe this is the year?
I think Mozzie Smith is probably on that list.
Yeah.
For the Cowboys, he was expected when he came in to be the meat in that line and really be a help in stopping the run and shore up the inside of that defensive line. He's never really done it. So he's certainly up there for me. Let's see if there's another one that I thought of. He's really the one that sticks out to me the most, I think. I think JJ McCarthy is going to be a bust, but that doesn't really count because he hasn't played yet. So that doesn't really fit the mold for this conversation, I don't think.
In reality, you could say Titus Howard over in the Texans is in that he's been paid once, but now it's like it's a new rebuild of the offensive line, and you're supposed to be a big part because we kept you. Is this offensive line? Are you part of the rebuilt offensive line? Or are you part of the next torn down offensive line? And are you going to be trying to be pushed out the door? They already got rid of Kenyon Green, so we're already going bust on Kenyon Green. So Titus Howard is the one I think you could look at and say, is he going to be the bust out of that? He was a 2019 guy. He's gotten paid. He's just never really been there. But yeah, this season, I think he's close to it already. But if this one doesn't go well, then yeah, you're still awful at offensive line, allowing league most sacks and all that and penalties. Then you're part of the problem.
Yeah, and I hate to bring this back to the Cowboys again, but another guy that really sticks out to me for them is Tyler Guyton.
Yeah.
They needed him to come in and be a day one starter, and he did not look like he should have been playing NFL football last year. So if he takes a step forward, maybe he can, start to get into that conversation. But right now, it seems like he's just kind of a swing tackle for them, and he comes in when the other two guys need a break. And that's about all he's been, and you can't have that out of a first-round pick. So he's another one that I would probably add.
Yeah. Can we throw in Jonathan Mingo, or has that already happened?
That's already happened. He's already a bust. No shade to my Ole Miss guy. I love him, but no, he's a bust.
All right. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back. We'll get to our meathead of the day and wrap things up here on a Monday or Tuesday afternoon here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered.
At Sleep Cycle Center, we can treat your sleep apnea in various ways. My story starts 15 years ago with the loss of my father to undiagnosed untreated sleep apnea. And this is a very preventable disease, and treatment options are various. Millions of people across America have sleep apnea, and they fail to realize the early warning signs. Fatigue, daytime sleepiness, and snoring are the most common signs. We'll find the best solution using advanced technology, oral and epigenetic appliances, or CPAP. We offer weight loss, oral surgery, and laser treatments. Schedule your appointment today and get your sleep evaluation.
If you're looking to remodel a kitchen, renovate your bathroom, or maybe add some new life to your outdoor space, reach out to our friends at McCall Custom Homes. They are custom home builders and renovators here in Central Texas, and they've been doing it in Central Texas for more than 40 years. It's a father-son team with a ton of experience, and all of that experience is here in the Austin area. So they know what it takes to turn an Austin area home into something truly, truly special. Right now, our friends at McCall Custom Homes are offering free estimates to TSU listeners so they can come out to your place, hear your vision, they can tell you what they can do, and then you can go from there. Don't just take my word for it. Check out their website, McCallCustomHomesATX.com. Look at the gallery of jobs they've done over the last 4 decades. And then when you're ready, again, reach out to them and they will come to you. McCallCustomHomesATX.com, or you can call or text Mike McCall directly at 512-633-9580. It's McCall Custom Homes. We build value into your home.
Hi, everyone. This is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations. We've been serving and assisting customers in the Texas area.
I think I got this by now, old man. This is Camilla McKay, Audiovisual's social media and website manager. Our company has been helping you sit back and relax for the last 37 years. We come to you, and we're the kind of workers you want in your home. We give you all the advice at a great price, and we do a lot more than just audiovisual systems. We have employees capable of performing services like electrical contracting, heated floors, motorized shades. Am I forgetting anything, old man?
Yeah, we do surveillance systems, controlled lighting systems, and landscape lighting, computer networks, multi-room audio systems, and of course, we install some really cool theaters.
I had a feeling you were going to say that last one.
Now, am I forgetting anything?
Only this. Remember to hug your kids, laugh with strangers, and make love to whoever the hell you want.
So give us a call at 512-255-8678.
Or visit us online at avconsultations.com.
That's 512-255-8678.
All right, back here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered, and we have a trade, Matt. We have a trade. Kristaps Porzingis has been traded.
No way.
Already. Kristaps Porzingis, according to Shams, Boston, Atlanta, and Brooklyn are finalizing a 3-team trade that sends Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick to the Hawks, Terrence Mann and Atlanta's number 22 to the Nets, and George Niang and a second-rounder to the Celtics. They have ditched themselves out of the second apron. They have now pulled themselves back down out of that second apron. The Celtics did it in one day. In less than 24 hours, they made the moves. The 2024 Celtics have been dismantled. They have traded 2 players that were part of that team. Porzingis and Drew Holiday both gone after last season. That means Jaylen Brown most likely not going anywhere. They can now work under that cap space and try and build something going forward, but not have all the second apron penalties that they were really trying to dreading. So that's big. They're able to move those off. Atlanta doesn't. I mean, Atlanta now gets Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know if that does anything. Him and Trae Young get to play together.
I mean, that's going to be a not very intimidating defense to go up against next year. I'll say that. It's not exactly going to be Oklahoma City's defense.
No, I think is they still got Clint Capella over there? Is he going to be a free agent? I don't know if you got Clint Capella and Kristaps Porzingis.
I didn't even realize Clint Capella was still playing basketball. So,
you know what though? It's going to be fun because we're going to be able to send Kristaps Porzingis to Magic City. So that'll be send the big man there. We know that he's not the greatest with the ladies, apparently, since he got sued by one for not paying for her sister's college, I believe is why she was sued. Let's get to our meathead of the day. I just want to see if you condone this behavior out of your players, Matt.
Wait.
That is Tyler Booker running with a kid at a camp and not wanting to lose, so he pushes the kid over at the end.
I mean, I kind of love it, personally. Like, he's that competitive to where he's going to push, what was that kid, like 13 years old? He's going to push over, oh, maybe. He pushes over a teenager to win a stupid race. Like, I kind of like it. It's funny. It shows his competitive nature. He's like, nah. And he, like, look at that power, too. That little stiff arm that just sends the kid flying.
Push an off-balance kid over.
Surefire first team All-Pro next season. I'm telling you, Patrick. That seals it right there.
I'm telling you, man. If I'm that kid, I'm walking with a limp the rest of the day. I'm definitely trying to get something out of that. Just be like, I don't know, man. It feels like my hip and my back and everything's just been off since that grown man pushed me over. I feel, oh no, I mean, I don't know. Maybe my career's over because that grown man just pushed a child. I don't. Give me something. Give me a T-shirt. Give me some tickets. Give me something.
It wouldn't be the first time something like that's happened. But look, that power, man. I'm telling you, he's gonna be throwing defensive linemen around all year. You can tell by the way he threw that 120-pound 13-year-old.
That's a type of players Jerry Jones thinks are character players. Tyler Booker just
assaulting a teenager
because he couldn't win the race.
Yeah. That's the kind of guy that like cheats at Call of Duty and Mario Kart and stuff.
Oh no, that's the type of dude who, you're playing a game of cards or something and you win the cards and he just flips the table. He's like, no, again. Like, no, man, I'm good. It's like it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm going to go to bed. No. You're like, so I can't win? Like, no, we're going to play until I win. There's no way you cannot win. I played horse with guys like that you get some good shots up and you hit some shots. And like, again, you're like, oh man, I'm good. I'm going to go back in and have some fun. They're like, no. You don't get to walk away winning. Like, yeah, I do. I don't care that much. So it's funny to me. All right. We'll see if there's any more big trades that come up. We've got one more already. Porzingis already traded off the Celtics. We'll see if the Celtics remain active or if that is what they were trying to get done. If any of these other teams get in on the action, we'll get more NBA draft talk tomorrow as well, some more college football talk, some more NFL talk as well, and whatever else you guys want to talk about, because we like talking with you guys every day here on the show. But until then, be kind, be safe, keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow